Okay, we are live, everyone.
Regular meeting of the Tipp. Oh, do you want me to do it again?
Yes, please.
Okay. I would like to call to order the April 27th, 2020 regular meeting of the Tipp City Board of Education. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
And to the
and
republic
to the republic
which is
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Dave, do you want to do a roll call?
I will. Mrs. Dunaway,
Here.
Mrs. Dahl,
Here.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Here.
Mr. Patry,
Here.
Mrs. Zakor.
Here.
All board members are present and accounted for, Madam President. There is a quorum this evening.
Okay, thank you. So we will start with the Miami Valley Career Technology Center update that Mr. Gilmore provided for us. And if you all read that committee report, I thought the one interesting thing that he did mention was that 35 of the 44 Tipp students were fully accepted into the programs. And then the other 9, there's various reasons, whether they are waitlisted or, something to that effect for the end of the school year. So that was what I got out of Russ's report. Did anybody have anything to add to that?
Good report. Excellent report as always.
Okay. All right. So that takes us to the superintendent and assistant superintendent's report. So I'll hand that over to you, Dr. Kampf and Dave.
Thank you very much. We'll start with just a coronavirus update and just want to highlight a few things. This is an ongoing process, even with today's announcement from the governor, but certainly the situation remains fluid and ever changing, as we have seen with today with a few new changes. Communication, collaboration, and problem solving is an important part of all of this. And we do now, of course, have the schools are closed to the end of the school year. Distance learning, which Mr. Veerhoff will tell us more about here shortly, but we're continuing to work remotely with the Google Classroom, textbooks, and instructional materials that are provided by our staff. We do have an update that we did at one of our former meetings here of late that was just with our certified staff, and that was connected to House Bill 197 and the COVID-19, saying that there would be a need for a memorandum of understanding because there are adjustments in the evaluation process for our certified staff. We also at that time indicated that we would be staying with OTEST 1.0 and not moving to OTEST 2.0. As a district for the next year's evaluation or whatever the state may be providing at that time, knowing that there may be some continued adjustments due to COVID-19. The student lunch program, it continues to work well. That is something where the school provides the cost for the food, the personnel, the van, and the delivery. And we have a great partnership with Tipp Monroe Community Services, as well as Tipp City United Methodist Church that allows us to use their kitchen there as a pickup and a preparation point. And so we right now do a one-day pickup for 5 days of meals, and that's working well. We do have works underway for our locker clean out, our device return and medication pickup, and there'll be more information in the superintendent's update this week about that. And we do know now that our spring sports season is going to be canceled. We were waiting for that, but that has now been announced. So the spring sports, athletic sports season has been canceled. And so we're working with how to just once again connect with those teams and coaches, and also are working with any sort of awards or recognition for those that have been involved in sports, both for winter and spring. And we did make a decision that we would move toward a virtual graduation, which is scheduled for May 30th at 7 p.m. And a lot of preparation is underway for that. We absolutely are going to try our very best to make that special and memorable for our graduating class of 2020. So that's the update on the COVID-19. Any particular question on that right now? All right, next item is a facilities update. And so I wanted to start with first off with that, we had some information that had been provided out, and the Fallon Research Community Facility Survey was put on hold in March, shortly after the mandated school closing. And we felt that the COVID-19 would impact the results of the research study at this time, the survey. And so we felt it would be best to put that on hold because we want the best information possible. We know that households, families, there's a lot of stress and that there's a lot of uncertainty right now. So that's why that's been put on hold. I was able to have a conversation with Eugene Chipqua, and that occurred just today. I had reached out and just the connection was a bit difficult because they are out of the offices as well at OFCC. And so I do have some information that I think is important for our board to be aware of, as well as our community. He indicated that an April update for inflation for construction cost, that is unknown at this time of when that will occur. So right now they are building their information off and using cost set that was from prior and that it's the most current numbers that they have. They have canceled all commission meetings up through May. And so the next meeting is now projected to be either July or August. And so there is a controlling board meeting that follows 2 to 3 weeks after the commission meeting. And they have already, at this time, they are at no new business because they're following the COVID-19 guidelines. Tipp City Schools, he informed me, will have to go through the commission meeting and the control board meeting for our preferred plan. In other words, we have to do the full process with that. He indicated that typically, just looking at projection of increase of cost, they often look at a ballpark of a suggested approximate about 5% additional cost. But he said it could range, anywhere from the 3 to 4 to 5%. But that's just something that typically when they're looking at changes. He did say September 1st that the new state share calculations will be announced, and that Tipp City's share, this is a piece that was new to me and will be for our board right now. Tipp City's state share is no longer locked in, that has, in his terms, expired. So the new percentage comes from the Department of Education calculation, and that would be the piece that we will learn about September 1st. So he guided me to make sure that our district is aware, and I will make sure that I make Mr. Stefanik aware that we want to have a conversation with OFCC shortly after September 1st to see what our new calculation state shared amount would be. He said if the state gets back closer to normal, he really felt that to be on he was really talking about possible the ballot on May 2021 to have the preferred plan to go through the commission, and then the second step as well, that he would advise December, January, that we would as a district, queue information up and have conversations with them so that would be either the December or January meeting for the commission. So that's important for us to be aware of, and certainly for my transition to our new superintendent to make that very certain with Mr. Stefanik as well. He finished the conversation really saying that everything is a big if right now because of the uncertainty. And so I do know that, the uncertainty of state budget and a number of things is what he's looking at. And so I just put out to the board right now with this information, and I know there's a lot for everyone to digest, but with the coronavirus and really the businesses that have been mandated closed, but we're going to be seeing some movement after today, but just knowing the impact on the economy and really our local families, a facility issue on the November ballot seems very unlikely. And I just want to see if that's like-minded thoughts with our board, or if that's something that we feel we need to have on our May work session to really discuss further about what next steps the board really would like to do in this regard. Would you like that to be on the May work session, May 4th? Something about facilities?
I think it's a good idea to have it in a work session, even if it's just to work through these issues. It doesn't sound like this year is going to be the year for it, but I think we need to kind of understand what we're going to do. I also think we need to kind of figure out what the next plan is then for the Fallon survey to make sure that it's ready to go and with anything we do, so we have the community feedback and understand what they're willing to support.
Okay.
Dr. Kump,
Yes.
I want to make sure I understood this. Right now, we don't have a locked-in state share percentage, correct?
That's right.
And you said that it looks like the earliest the commission is going to be able to discuss our local situation at the very earliest would be around September 1st.
So they would, they said that the commission will have its first meeting either in June. No, let me look back, the two dates of
July or August.
July. And so that's when they will begin having some discussions, but really for us to know our new calculation, yes, September 1st is for the new calculation.
Okay, so to answer your question, my thought is that yes, it needs to be on a work session, but I think it's premature for May, given all the other more immediate issues that we're going to have to address and work out. And without having the feedback from OFCC in terms of details, any details, I just feel that we have a lot more to address than to put that on a May work session. That's just my feeling. Not that it's not important, but let's work with concrete information. And we already have some concrete information on issues that we need to deal with. So I'd rather use the May work session for, more pressing immediate issues, I guess.
I agree with Ann. We won't have anything new, like she's saying, to move forward with. So I agree that it needs to be in a work session after that September date when we get that information, so then we have something to work with.
I think that makes sense.
No, I'm sorry, Simon, go ahead.
No, I should say, I think that makes sense. The only thing I'd say is that we might want to have it as a footnote to think about in relation to the Fallon survey, so we're not on our heels and we can be proactive with it.
On the upside, since our schools, are physically closed, that might then afford us greater opportunity to move forward on some projects. And would the May work session be a good time to get an update on traffic study and have Gary attend that and give us some feedback on, I know last year, I think we talked about perhaps moving forward on some steps of redesigning that entrance to and to the middle school. Is that something that would be appropriate to add to that agenda, or is it too premature?
You're muted, Ms. Dunaway.
I don't think we need to talk about the traffic study in May. I think we kind of do it all at once. We don't even know what the building's going to look like.
I'm sorry.
We might completely change the building before then, and change the traffic study as well.
Dr. Kumpf, I know you just got that information today. Is there a way for you to summarize it and send it to us in the Friday board update?
Absolutely. That's what I was thinking. I know there's a lot of parts and pieces to that, but it was a very good conversation. And I did take careful notes during the time. And then I did kind of, in a sense, recite a number of those important points back to him to make sure that I was writing that and deciphering his information correctly. As you know, Eugene does have a kind of a heavy accent. So I just wanted to make sure that I was actually gathering that and making sure that that was correct. So I do feel confident in the information that I've shared with you this evening about that's what was conveyed to me. And I certainly can pull those notes into a type of a attachment that I can provide you with the Friday board update.
Thank you.
I would think, Dr. Kump, it would be pretty reasonable to say that even what you received today, may not be what we receive, even a month from now. Things are so fluid and dynamic.
Yes, yes, I fully agree that that's why there could be a number of changes by September 1st for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do think that one piece that will be a little bit of a bit of a moving target, but something to keep our eyes on about what would be the appropriate timing for that Fallon survey. And so, maybe September, there could be some discussions once you have that information about what is the time. Is the time May to do the study so that you have it for later, much like what we were kind of getting queued up for a summer thing to be for the following November? Or and I know there, once again, there's a lot of time and distance and could be a lot of shifts and changes between now and then, but I do think that just figuring out, so because it's in a sense working back from that date to make sure we have things in place so that we have the information we need to make those decisions when you're ready. All right. I think the next item was about a kindergarten registration. And I just wanted to give an update on that on our website, I want to encourage our community that happens to be watching tonight or has a neighbor next door that you can still kind of reach out to via, once again, electronically or even from a distance across the fence. But if they have a young child that's not registered yet, we want to encourage them to do that. Right now, we have 145 registered kindergartners for next fall. And so we have a distance to go because we know that's going to probably be near the 200 mark come the opening of school. And on our district website, there is right on the, what I call the very front cover page of our website. It does have about kindergarten registration for the 2021 school year. It has a link to click into. It talks about if a child is 5 years old prior to August 1st, 2020, that then they are ready to enroll and be part of our kindergarten incoming class. And that we have done some in-person enrollment appointments, but currently that is really on hold. So just get as much information as you can in with that 1, 2, 3 kind of electronic process that we have. And then as soon as we have more information or be able to begin scheduling the screening and projecting out for that, they will be reaching out to you based on the information you provide us for contacts. All right, and then the next piece is about the Ohio Principal Evaluation System. And I am going to try my best to do a share screen and share a couple slides. So it says I cannot share a screen while the screening is being shared, Mr. Stevens. Is that because we have our background from the board office?
Probably.
Yeah, let me take care of that right now. Give me a moment.
Okay, because if not, I could just talk through the slides without having them up.
All right, Greta, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, thank you. All right. I'm going to try this. If I do it. Are you able to see that?
Did you click say, did you say share screen?
I thought I had. Let me go down. Share screen. When I have share screen, I'm having difficulty finding it, even though it's minimized. Oh, here, let me try this. I get it.
There you go. You're good. What? Yep, you're good.
Good. Okay. Finally, thank you for being patient.
No problem.
All righty. Just going to do some slides on our Ohio principal evaluation system, just to provide some information about what our principals that as I sit and work with them, and also over the year when as they set goals, have the system that's set up with the state of Ohio, and there's an actual state portal that that information is placed in. It is in tandem as far as it has similar components, although they're distinctly different for the roles, but to our Ohio teachers evaluation system. So it is adopted by the State Board of Education, and this system really provides a view of the principal performance, looks at specific strengths and opportunities for improvement and feedback for that. It is a standards-based integrated model. I'm going to talk a little bit of what those standards are. It's designed to foster professionalism and really increase in the growth of knowledge, skills, and practice for our principals. It does provide tools within that to assess and monitor their leadership performance, and also tries to provide consistency across district, and I'd say districts even across the state. So it is conducted by the superintendent or designee, and that individual, such as myself, is trained and credentialed with an OPES credential, just like our principals are trained and credentialed for an OTES credential. It is based on a collaborative relationship in a conversation and conferences between the evaluator and the principal. And it does provide a view of performance with a focus on strength and areas to improve. So the 5 standards that are highlighted are, first, the continuous improvement. And just continuous improvement is largely focused on vision, that shared vision. It gets into goal setting. That would be for the building and also for student achievement for that building. It focuses in areas of change for improvement, and also even the leadership that that building principal provides for that change. For instruction, standard 2, that once again is really looking at the alignment of our standards with the state Ohio learning standards. And so that as instruction is provided in the classrooms, that's a piece that is to be monitored by the principal, and they are to be aware that that is aligning with our instruction is aligning with the state learning standards. It also provides opportunities or encourages about research-based information, so that as we're providing professional development for our staff, that it is based in best practice, which once again increases and enhances the instruction in our classrooms. And then that 3rd standard is school operations, resources, and learning environment. And that is the first one. With the school operations, it's really talking about school safety is a very large focus. And that is something that we work very hard on day in and day out, wanting to make our schools safe. It does look at school-wide programs such as the PBIS for our students. It also would include physical and mental health and wellness, any support there for our students. And it is about allocation when it gets into allocations of resources for learning and instruction. And that would be, for example, technology as a resource for instruction, which is really important this time. That particular area also addresses what we would call professional ethics, and that's an important piece. And then standard number 4 is about collaboration, and that's about a principal fostering opportunities for teachers to collaborate together as they are working on instruction and their own professional development and meeting the needs of all students. And then the 5th one is parents and community engagement. And that's about school community partnerships. It's about our community volunteers that serve in so many ways. And it has some aspects that even touch upon things such as service projects, such as Shoes for the Shoeless. Our schools connect with the community and are building positive relationships and doing positive things as we nurture our youth, just thinking about strong citizenship. So that's the 5 standards that we work off of. So the evaluation components are really broken down into 2 areas, and they're weighted 50% each. The first one is the principal performance rating, And the second one, and the principal performance rating, is a rubric that has these standards that we just talked about and has them on a continuum. And you look at what is occurring, and then there are conversations and types of evidence that are observed or gathered. And then the second one is the student academic growth rating. And that particular piece is really one of two things. That is either a value-added score that actually comes from multiple data points, and then that's provided by the state. It's actually rolled straight into the portal that comes from the state and from the value-added rating that we receive as a school district, but also particularly as a building. And then the second one that could be used because we have grade levels that do not have value-added scores, because that is in our upper grades, that starts actually in our 4-5 building and up. But K through 3, they do SLO, student learning objectives, and that's how their academic student growth is measured. And so we look at that, and those are the two components, and each of those are 50%. So the final summative rating, we talk about, they set as principals, they set professional goals. And so we talk about the growth and that goal setting that's occurred. We talk about the formative assessments that they have utilized over the school year or that's in process. We review our conferences, our observations, and their professionalism. And then there are the two main ratings, the professional performance rating based off the rubric, and there is the student academic growth rating based off of the SLO piece, or it's the value-added score, and that equals then the summative performance rating. There are comments that are talked about the refinement and the reinforcement, which begin looking at what would be goals, what is going well, and what will you extend and enhance, and what is an area that you definitely want to focus on and build off of for one of your goals for the following year. I usually have my principals do 2 professional goals. So that just kind of brings it full circle that, you know, it is a collaborative process of really sitting down and looking at principles and looking at strengths, but also at opportunities for improvement. Any questions on that, or any particular slides you'd like to have reviewed? I think it, you know, it just gives some background information about how our principals, they provide an important role in our district, and then just what their evaluation process looks like. Okay, well, with that then, I am going to have to learn how to stop sharing. Stop share. All right, and so that means that Mr. Veerhoff is up next, and I think that he has things to share, and I know he'll have a slideshow for you in just a bit as well.
Thanks, Dr. Kumpf. First, I'd like to start with the distance learning report. And with that, I just want to highlight the collective effort that has been going on in our district with providing students with lunches, over 200 devices being loaned out to students who needed devices, the teachers and their collaborative planning and providing instruction to the best of their abilities through distance learning. I think given the circumstances and the short period of time that we had to really kind of kick off this plan and go full tilt with it, we've learned quite a bit from this, and we're going to continue to learn through this process and want to gather feedback on that. And that's really what I wanted to highlight tonight in the distance learning report, is that we are going to be sending out this week surveys to the staff, to our parents, and to our students to gather feedback about the distance learning experience. And we're doing this for 2 reasons. One, to gather input kind of midstream and figure out what adjustments need to be made to close out the school year, but also to gather feedback and learn from this process to see what improvements need to be made and what changes we need to make if we have to go to distance learning in the fall, or we have some sort of blended learning model, and also to find out what's worked through this this format, and what tools are teachers going to continue to want to utilize and students want to utilize when we eventually return to normal school operations. So when we push that out to the community, parents, students, and then to our teachers, as much feedback as you can provide would be very helpful to us. And then from there, we're going to try to set up some targeted focus groups next week and talk with parents and students and teachers and get more of that anecdotal feedback outside of the survey and follow up on some of the data that we find within the survey. So that's what we've been focused on for, I would say, the last week or so, and really looking at what steps need to be taken to close out the year, and also to put us at a point next school year where we're ready to hit those curriculum standards that we maybe missed along the way during this process, and hopefully springboard into growth and learning in the fall. Any questions on the distance learning part of things?
I have a question, Mr. Verhoff. It's Ann.
Okay.
But this report, your launch date, a tentative date is when to get it out?
We want to push the surveys out this week.
Oh, the surveys, okay.
Yes. So hopefully I would be able to share some things with you at the work session on May 4th, and definitely by the next regular board meeting. Other questions?
Is there some anticipation that we might be doing distance learning in the fall?
I think it's hard to speculate with that right now. The governor still is talking about bans of gatherings of more than 10 people. Daycares are not yet open. I think we have to be thinking forward and plan in the event that could be the case. We certainly don't want that to be the case, because that's not a good sign for our community or for the state or the country. But we have to be prepared for that and be proactive in our planning. I think if I were to speculate, I would think that we may be looking at some sort of blended model or an A-B type schedule where we have an A group of students coming in one day or half a day, and then a B group of students coming in another day. And that way we're able to maintain social distancing and provide PPE for people and things like that.
And I'll just add that, ultimately there's so many uncertainties, but if we are fortunate enough to be able to begin at the beginning year in more of a regular or normal format, we still have to be prepared in case a second wave of the virus would come through, and then we would have to do an adjusted, once again, distance learning or blended piece. So I think it's a great piece to be proactive, to find out what everybody's in the midst of our distance learning, of what's going well and what's not, gathering that feedback so we can just be ready and prepared, for next fall, whatever comes. And I appreciate
Wow.
Mr. Verhoff's efforts.
Yes, thank you very much. It's like you turned into war generals, you have to strategize for which direction the war is going to go, it's like, gee.
That's a great analogy.
They certainly don't provide the training for you in this area in your master's classes and things like that. So
Yeah.
There wasn't a chapter on this in your superintendent license?
No, global pandemics.
I bet there will be for new
Yeah.
superintendents moving
Yes.
They
forward.
will.
Yeah.
They're definitely going to add a pandemic chapter after this.
But I think what should be recognized is that across the district, people have stepped up. Our staff, our administrative team, our classified staff, teachers, our community as a whole has stepped up to this challenge, and together we've been able to persevere through some pretty tough times.
Great.
Yes, I'd have to say we all as a team have been very active problem solvers, because every day is something new, it seems.
Well, in some cases, you're making up the answers for problems you didn't know existed until they come up. So
Right.
it's
Sure.
commendable because it's reactionary management instead of proactive management. So I commend you for at least putting the surveys out because it'll be fresh in people's minds. And I hope you
Right,
get
and I just think it goes with the analogy, you know, you prepare for emergency drills all the time in your buildings. And so this is now one of those new emergency preparation drills. You know, if you can't have on-site space learning, then it's got to go remote.
Sure. So unless there's any further questions, Mr. Stevens, we can transition to my my screen so that I can share the social studies presentation. So what I would like to do this evening is just summarize the report that was shared with the board and attached to the board agenda from the social studies curriculum review team. I first would like to thank the community or the committee members that are all listed here. This committee met monthly throughout the school year up until we were sent on to remote learning and remote working. But the committee was comprised of these members from the elementary, middle, and high schools in our district. They did an excellent job in researching best practices, really digging into the standards, and deconstructing those standards to drill down and align them with Webb's depth of knowledge, which provides us with more focus on depth of learning and really looked at the complexity of each standard and evaluated the specific skill that students were being asked to demonstrate or the content that was asked to be learned in each of those different content standards. We identified areas where we could improve. We visited area schools that were implementing innovative programs and explored different options that we could implement in our own district. We designed internal surveys that were then distributed and analyzed by the committee. We wanted to understand student perceptions of our current programming and their perceived needs, and then also our staff. And so we'll talk a little bit more about those surveys later on in this presentation. So when we look at the overall goals of our program, we want to provide all students with the opportunity to explore the themes and questions that guide the contents of history, civics, economics, and geography. We want to be able to connect the past. We want to understand the present and shape the future. We want our students to explore rich and varied texts and media, but we want to emphasize primary sources so that they can begin to form their own opinions and be able to really shape their habits of inquiry and critical thinking so that they can become engaged, informed members of society. And so when we look at those things and we can drill it down to really kind of three overarching themes in our goals. We want to focus on the acquisition of content knowledge. We want the development of skills, and we really want to inspire the students to continue to be those questioners and critical thinkers as they move forward in the education process. So when we look at changes that have taken place since our last review, and if you recall, we do this about every 6 years. So a lot has happened in that period of time. I think we can safely say that our students, society in general, we have unprecedented access to information, and there's an increased need to be able to critically evaluate that information. Because of that unprecedented access, there's a changing sense of what civic participation means in the era of social media and internet access. We had a new state model in terms of curriculum that was just released last year. And so we had to mirror our curriculum to that new model curriculum from the state. In that model curriculum, it really pushes content literacy and specifically informational text. And so we knew that we needed to include a literacy component and really push our literacy component in our social studies curriculum. And then you also have the ever-changing graduation requirements and the continued emphasis on college-ready curriculum through advanced placement or College Credit Plus. So as we went to gather feedback from teachers and students, starting with the teachers, we administered a survey to 33 social studies teachers across grades K through 12. The teachers shared perspective on the changes in social studies curriculum, their use of textbooks and supplemental materials, and then important focus areas within the content. And what we found is that teachers indicated they spent a great deal of time selecting and developing supplemental materials. And so as a committee, we felt if we could identify materials that would help streamline that process and save teachers time, that was something we needed to explore. So regarding textbooks, finding out that teachers are typically only using their textbooks 1 to 2 times per week, we placed greater emphasis with the supplementals than we did the actual physical textbook. As we look to the survey, or excuse me, the student portion of the survey, we surveyed approximately 416 students in grades 6 through 12. 42% of those were high school students and 58% were middle school students. Overall, we found that students had positive experiences with their teachers, they disliked homework, and they found social studies courses to be meaningful and enjoyable. That was just kind of the surface level stuff. But as we drilled down deeper to look at materials and textbook and instruction, there again, we found textbook use is not very widespread and that it's not being used every day. And that's okay. That's something that we needed to find out to know we need to place greater emphasis with supplementals than the actual physical textbook. So it helped in making appropriate decisions regarding materials. And we found that students are desiring that relevancy, being able to make connections to current events. And so that was something that was very important to us in looking at what types of textbooks and supplemental materials we were exploring, and also in designing the actual curriculum. So from there, we started to analyze our strengths, and we did this through not just the survey results, but also our own analysis of student work, of state assessments, college entrance exams. And what we found were that we provide tremendous learning opportunities for engagement and interaction in the middle grades, grades 4 through 8. We have diverse course offerings at the high school, with the number of AP classes and college prep classes, and even some of the electives that we're able to offer at the high school. Some of our teachers have been able to develop performance assessments that align with not just social studies topics, but also ELA standards. This is something that's been a focus at the middle school. And we're finding that that's going to better prepare our students, not just for writing and thinking critically, but on those state assessments as they move into the upper levels. We found that elementary instruction does a great job with doing cross-curricular lessons. A lot of our social studies instruction at the elementary level, it takes place in the reading and writing portion of the student's day, with those cross-curricular opportunities. So looking at recommendations, continued alignment with the Ohio State test, AP exams, college entrance exams. And what we mean by grading alignment is developing those rubrics for writing assignments and assessments that align to the desired outcomes in those assessments. Even common assessments to be able to benchmark where students are at in their progress, to make sure that we're providing the same content experiences across different teachers and grade levels. Having that horizontal alignment within our curriculum, we feel is very important. That's going to take time, and it's going to take a collective effort to develop the protocols to examine that work with consistent standards and develop those rubrics, to look at the vertical and horizontal alignment, make sure that we're marching through those curriculum maps. Other areas that the team recommended was a diverse curriculum, meaning a wide variety of both print and web-based and digital type resources. And you'll see that in some of the curriculum materials that we have later on in the presentation. So looking at just at an overview of the programs in K through 5, especially the K3 grade bands, you see a lot of cross-curricular social studies being integrated into those small blocks of time, focusing on time, heritage, national symbols, basic geography concepts like maps and symbols and cardinal directions and locations, basic economic principles like goods and services, needs and wants, individual rights and rights of others. Those are all elements of the K3 curriculum. As we move into grades 4 and 5, we start to see for the first time consistent blocks of daily instruction within the student's day for social studies. And in grade 4, that instruction focuses on Ohio history, early American history, and then in grade 5, early Western civilizations and geography. As students transition to the middle school, we see more of a breakdown of the curriculum in terms of time and also regions. We see an integration also of economics and geography skills. So in 6th grade, you have and I noticed my typo there, ancient river civilizations, Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, China. Focus on major world religions. And then as they transition into 7th grade, you have the emergence of modern Europe. The course discusses the rise and fall of various empires, including ancient Greece, Rome, the Middle East, West Africa, the Silk Road dynasties, really looking at the rise of social systems, the development of nation states that we recognize today, and the exchange of ideas through commerce and trade. In 8th grade, the focus turns to American history, and the time period or time frame is up to Reconstruction. And during that course, there's really a emphasis on the foundations of individual liberties and rights, the creation of our national government, and then also our early involvement in foreign affairs. As students move to the high school, we start to get into selecting courses. We also start to get into those graduation requirements. And so courses at the high school meet every day, either for a semester or a full school year. The courses are aligned with the model curriculum from the state, with the only exceptions being our advanced placement courses that align with the curriculum standards set forth by College Board. And the reason for that is to prepare those students for the AP exam so that they can hopefully earn college credit. At the high school level, students have to earn 3 credits in social studies to meet graduation requirements. They have to earn 1 credit in world history, 1 credit in American history, and then 1 credit in government. There are some electives for students to choose from, and you can see those listed there: Psych 1 and 2, Social 1 and 2, World War II, and then American Civil War and Reconstruction. In 2017, we expanded AP social studies offerings at the high school and really created pathways for students. We added AP Human Geography and AP World History. And now with this curriculum review, we're adding AP Comparative Politics. The addition of these courses was intended to meet graduation requirements, but also narrow the scope of differentiation that was needed in our social studies classrooms across Tippecanoe High School. Prior to these pathways, you would have students from all ranges of abilities. And so you had students that were, in the top 10% of the class with students that were in the bottom 10% of the class. And it was very difficult for, in that inclusion setting, to differentiate to meet the needs of all students. And so what we designed with these pathways is for more co-taught classes in the college prep area in an inclusion setting, and then the AP pathway to help our differentiate and meet the needs of our higher learners. And so with these two pathways, students complete the graduation requirements. If they're in that AP pathway, they have the opportunity to earn college credit through the AP exam. And they're able to participate in that pathway through academic performance or teacher recommendations. Students can move between the two pathways as long as they're fulfilling the requirements for graduation. So as we look at materials here, I do have a couple video clips that I want to share with you on some of these materials, because I think they're interactive and something that students are going to be very engaged in. I think our staff is going to be excited to be working with it as well. As we look at K1, a lot of the materials that we're purchasing for grades K through 3 are materials that can be incorporated into stations, into learning stations, and into different cross-curricular activities. So there's simulation kits, there's children's books, role-playing sets. And one of the features one of the materials I want to share with you are these National Geographic giant maps. So we're going to try this with a video clip and see how the audio works here. So bear with me.
It's a giant map. There's a real excitement about geography and about learning.
It's big and it's awesome.
Kids can't wait to get on it.
National Geographic's giant map is the best tool to engage students in the classroom.
They're active, they're using their hands, their feet. They can really explore.
It takes 23 third graders to go all around Africa.
Teachers are really embracing it as a tool in their classroom. Many districts and schools have purchased maps for use year-round.
Simon says, leap like a lemur to Madagascar.
All of the kids had to go and leap around all to Madagascar, and they love it. It's so much fun.
Anytime that the word geography comes up, they're going to say, oh, I remember that giant map.
It makes such a huge difference.
Kinesthetic learning is very important to students. Moving around, placing information on the map.
The giant map is an incredible opportunity to use a tool that guarantees learning.
So we'll be purchasing some of these giant maps for the K5 grade bands, and then you'll also see it as one of the materials that's going to be at the middle school as well. And with each of those giant maps comes a number of downloadable resources and physical resources that then can be used to enhance the students' geography skills, make those learning experiences interactive and memorable, make them relevant, but also rigorous at the same time. As we look at the 4th and 5th grade materials, you'll see that we are exploring TCI's Social Studies Alive at the 5th grade level. We're continuing with the Pearson My World that aligns with Ohio history and the content standards for Ohio. But we are trying something different at LT Ball with the 5th grade and the Social Studies Alive platform. You'll also see that Newsela and Studies Weekly are supplementals. Newsela is a platform that provides great opportunity for our teachers across a number of different content areas, but specifically in the social studies, it allows us to access news stories and historical news articles, famous speeches, primary and secondary sources that are then differentiated to match students' reading levels. And it's not just a differentiation based on, oh, I think you're in this reading level group or this. It matches it based on quizzes and activities that the students have done within Newsela. So it's an individual match for each student, not just a group match or a guessing game. So we're excited about that. And also because it aligns with the 2 textbooks that we're selecting at that grade level. There is a text set that Newsela has developed that aligns with the scope and sequence of Pearson My World. There's also a text set that aligns with the TCI platforms across various grade levels. And so we see that as a time saver in terms of supplemental resources for our teachers. Studies Weekly is another supplemental that you're going to see across a couple different grade bands here in K5. Those are printed weekly units in newspaper format that then can be used as interactives within the classroom that are aligned to the Ohio curriculum. There's also a web-based platform that comes with Studies Weekly. So in the event that we have to do some remote learning or distance learning, we're able to utilize that as a resource. So moving to the middle school has been using History Alive for a number of years. They did not want to move away from that. We've had great success with that. And students find it to be very engaging and interactive. We also have a Rand McNally Digital World Atlas. And so I want to share that with you because this is another great resource for our teachers and our students that's also going to be implemented at the high school. Oops, let me back up there. Try this again.
Rand McNally World Atlas is an online educational resource that delivers dynamic, customizable maps, along with social studies, history, and geography content for the classroom. All you need is an internet connection. It's filled with integrated lesson plans, cross-curricular activities, learning tools, and much more. Let's explore. Browse Rand McNally's library of custom map styles. Pick from leveled political and physical maps, or select other types of maps, including outline, terrain, nightlights, satellite, and many more. Pick from dozens of available data layers, including historical maps, population density, climate, and natural hazards. Mix and match layers by toggling them on and off. Annotate your maps with drawing tools. Draw straight directional lines from point to point. Create shaded shapes, rectangles, and even drop a pin where you can add the content of your choice. Save your map using the Map Shots tool. Map shots are saved to your account and can be shared with your students or colleagues using a custom link. Only want to capture a section of your map? Just click Share, define your region, and create a downloadable PDF to share or print. Use the toggle switch to turn on the Map Explorer and click any country, U.S. state, or Canadian province to read about the region's history, culture, people, and economy. See facts and figures and hundreds of additional downloadable maps. In the Tools tab, you can use one of the many lessons as a turnkey solution to teaching a variety of topics. In the lesson, you'll find links to corresponding maps, activity suggestions, handouts, and links to outside resources. All lesson plans are structured the same way to give you consistency when teaching. In the Standards search, you'll find that our lesson plans are aligned with Common Core, TEKS, and state standards. Collaboration is at the heart of World Atlas. Create individual accounts for all your students to allow them to collaborate with peers as well as share their maps with teachers. Rand McNally World Atlas is available through an annual subscription. For more information on World Atlas,
so there again, I think is another great resource for our teachers and our students to be able to explore different historical maps, population density, a whole host of things interactively, and provides our teachers with additional resources that they don't have to search for. It starts to become more of a one-stop shop with Newsela and the Digital World Atlas and some of the other supplementals that we're providing. So in looking at the high school instructional materials, it's really a combination of a variety of different textbook platforms, and mostly that's because of the number of classes and different needs at the high school. We are looking to incorporate TCI and the History Alive and World Connections platforms in our world history and in our American history classes. We're also adding that Rand McNally Digital World Atlas. There's a number of novels and textbook AP test preparation books that we're going to be adding as well. So when you break this down across grade levels, you can see the different costs and the total cost for our curriculum. And I will say that this comes in under budget, and we really went to great lengths to try and be fiscally responsible with ordering, classroom sets of textbooks and online licenses for textbooks rather than 200 textbooks or more that would need to sit in a locker somewhere. And so we're trying to be fiscally responsible with these purchases. So just in summary, again, I want to thank the team for their hard work and their dedication to seeing this program through, even despite some of the things that we've experienced the last 6 weeks or so. The program is aligned with the state's model curriculum. It meets the goals of our curriculum, our review team, in being that we want to focus on that acquisition of content knowledge, development of skills, and really fostering that lifelong learning in our students through questioning and inquiry. Again, the instructional materials are really a blended learning experience for our students between digital and print resources. It's interactive, engaging, and hopefully relevant to our students. That's something that we really wanted to focus on. This is not only having the rigorous learning opportunities, but the relevant learning opportunities. And again, it comes in under budget, and we're trying to be fiscally responsible with the purchase of these materials. So with that, if there are any questions or comments, be glad to field those.
Well, I would speak up. I want to thank Mr. Veerhoff and his committee for doing such a thorough job and looking at all aspects and bringing some fresh things to our district that will make social studies exciting in those classrooms. I want to also thank them staying on timeline. It's difficult with this change now and our mandated closure, but they've done a lot of work up front, but able to get it to this point, and we stay on our timeline to move forward for our adoption. So I greatly appreciate that and congratulate you on that. Thanks.
Thank you.
That all together, Steve, you and your committee have done a nice job. Very informative.
Thank you.
Love those giant maps.
Great. That's good. Hopefully the kids will too.
Anybody else have any comments?
Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're good, Dave. So seeing that there's no more comments, we'll move on to citizen comments. So we did have 5 citizen comments. So we are going to, oh, hey, there you go. So Mrs. Dowell is going to read 3 and I will read 2. And then Dave, are you going to do the 5-minute timer?
Yes, I'll push the timer. I think
Okay.
I'll be the one to see it unless I share that screen. Wait, that's on a different computer. So I'll just I'll let you know if it's time to cut off.
Okay, great. So we will start with, let's see, go ahead. So Corinne, I'll let you start and just read the person's name,
Okay.
then their
This is-
comment.
All right. This is Angie Chronister. She writes, "Hi, Dave. I would strongly urge the board to allow another vote on the open enrollment issue. The issue was voted down, not because 3 people voted no, but because 3 people didn't vote yes. When out of 5 board members, 1 abstained and 1 was absent. That is not an accurate vote. We did not elect the board members to abstain or miss meetings. If there was an urgent issue that required someone to miss, then the vote should have been moved to the next meeting. This should be raised for a vote when all 5 members are present, and all should be required to vote. Furthermore, I would ask all board members to really consider the consequences of denying the 33 current students the ability to continue to attend Tipp City schools. Whether they actually live in our schools, in our city limits or not, they are Tipp students as of right now. How could you deny them the opportunity to continue being part of the Tipp community? There are a wide variety of valid reasons as to why their parents don't currently live in Tipp City, but the most valid point is that Tipp allowed them to become a part of our community, and to deny them that opportunity now is quitting on them. Do you, or did you, allow your children to quit activities that they have started and invested time in, or do you help them figure out a way to make it work? You can argue that the cost of these students, but please explain how removing 33 students across 13 grades is going to significantly reduce cost. You're not going to eliminate a teacher or significantly impact any class size. Yes, there are costs to having any student in our school system. So are we going to put a cap on the total number of students that we can have in the system as a whole? As I understand it, we are getting tax dollars for these students. So how is it any different than allowing these 33 students to continue versus getting 33 new students next year that actually live in city limits? I believe that you all ran for school board position because you want to fight for the students in the Tipp community. Well, these kids are a part of the Tipp community now. How can you ask them to do this? My daughter has a friend who is a sophomore who has attended Tipp his entire life. As a junior, you're going to tell him, sorry, we changed our minds. You're not a Tipp student anymore. Go to a new school, make all new friends at this incredibly difficult part of your education experience. Good luck. This does not make anyone Tipp proud at all. For those who don't know me, I have been a part of the Tipp community for almost 15 years. My children have attended Tipp their entire lives. My son, Ben, graduated last year, and my daughter, Maddie, is a sophomore currently. Thank you for hearing my concerns. Sincerely, Angie Chronister. All right. Can I just go right into the next one then? So the next one is Stan Evans. To the board, I am Stan Evans, and I pose this question to the board for the above indicated board meeting. What is the board's plan or recommendation to the staff to recoup the $400,000 lost income from your recent decision regarding open enrollment? Additionally, this occurring at a time when most likely normal state funding will be cut due to the Corona-19 situation. I think the timing of all of this drastically affects the outcome of your decision and should have been taken into consideration. Respectfully, Stan Evans. And next is Corey Vaughn. Hello. Oh, hello. I'd like to submit a question for the citizen comments for tonight's board meeting. From being part of this district, I am aware some families have been able to pay tuition to send their kids to Tipp City schools. In light of the recent decision to close open enrollment and the hardship this could cause for families magnified by the COVID-19 pandemic, could we allow families to apply for tuition-based enrollment next year? If yes, please expand on how families can apply for this option. If no, what other options might you be willing to make available to help families and students in need at this time? Mental and emotional support seems to be a big topic in the schools and an area of focus. Obviously, your decision to close open enrollment has created hardships for the families currently enrolled in TIP schools, which are your current students. So I assume you have some kind of plan in place to help support these current families and students of Tip City schools. Sincerely, Corey Vaughn.
Okay, thank you. So my first one is from Lauren Gibbs. Good evening. My name is Lauren Gibbs. I am writing on behalf of my family and our experience with the Tip City Enrichment Program. My daughter and son have both attended the preschool program as well as the before and after school program at TSEP. Our positive experiences with TSEP helped us make the decision to move from Vandalia to Tip City in order to continue the education of our children, changing from open enrollment status to official Tip City residents. TSEP is listed under the district's list of support organizations on the website. Just as the Tip City Monroe Community Services, Tip City Library, and various boosters support our schools, you, as a district, have deemed the Tip City Enrichment Program as another notable support system to our schools. And you are absolutely correct. TSEP is a support system to not only our district, but also to many parents in our community. It is where we drop off our children because we can't be home to watch them get on the bus in the morning. It is where our children become kindergarten ready due to the teachers and staff. It is where we eagerly pick up our children after a tough day of work. It is where our children get to play, explore, and create in a safe environment when school is closed due to bad weather. Just as many of us have shown support for our local small businesses over these past few weeks, I look to the district to show its support of TSEP. Remember, it is listed as a support organization to the district. Now is an imperative time for the district to show its support in return. Please keep this in mind as you discuss TSEP later in today's meeting. Many families are counting on you. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter. You rock. Sincerely, Lauren Gibbs. Was that under 5 minutes, Dave? Okay, all right. So the final citizen comment tonight would be Kathy Bone. Hang on, this is kind of small. Okay. I have to say I am not shocked by the recent news article I read about Mr. Patry and Mrs. Heatherly wanting to talk about the open door policy again. I will remind Mr. Patry that his reasons, as were cited in the newspaper, for wanting a board seat was to reduce the number of kids in a classroom. We already accommodate the teachers with less than the state rules. While these two board members are jumping on the COVID pandemic whine cycle as a reason for woe about this, with families having hardships because their child cannot go to TIP, let me remind them that the families were well aware their child could be refused entrance to Tip City School any given year. As a taxpayer who moved to this district so my children could have a better school, which is debatable at this time, I find it a slap in the face for people to not live here, but have kids that go here. Move into the district, shop and dine local, put your money into the town. When it comes to the teachers' kids, they can go back to their home district as well. I don't know how the school board could think the taxpayer will be okay giving up more of their money for new schools when we are still paying for the overbuilt high school, the stadium, and yes, the facts show we are paying for the stadium. And then hand over more money for new schools when kids that don't even live here take up the academic space of Tip City students. While you are jumping on the COVID wagon of whining, let me remind you, it is a virus. It will come around again. The school board's focus should be on more important things for the kids that do live in the district, such as the following items. And this is a very limited list as I go on and on. What are the teachers doing this academic year to keep their students at their grade level for learning? What will they do next year when it comes around again and the schools are shut down? What were some of the problems the last 2 months the teachers have had with teaching online? What were problems the students had? Was every student able to get online for schoolwork? Did we hand out computers to everyone? Do we need to set up hotspots in town somewhere for those who may not have home access? How will that work if businesses are shut down again? Where would these hotspots be? Do the teachers need to prep for a new school year, but setting up a fully functional online classroom that may be used at any time, for instance, E-days or COVID? I believe the school board should focus more on the academics of our school and how these teachers are going to give the kids that live in the district more attention, especially during something like we have had and are continuing to endure, rather than worrying about kids that don't live in the district. Kathy Bone. Okay. So that takes us to TCEA comments, Dave. And unless I'm incorrect, there's no comment from TCEA for this meeting? Am I right? Oh.
The link was provided to Mrs. Yunker, but I don't see her waiting to come in. Let me check.
No, she didn't have a comment. I just wanted to make sure she didn't reach out to you, but.
I have nothing.
Okay, great. Yeah, to my knowledge, there's no comment from Mrs. Yunker for tonight's meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So that takes us to president comments. Okay. So for the first time in 10 years, there will be no open enrollment for the upcoming 2020-2021 school year. This is a conversation that got started in February at a work session. We've had subsequent meetings, and even as recently as last week, we discussed open enrollment. At some point, it's important that we move past this open enrollment rhetoric and deal with the current issues at hand. At the end of the day, I report to the taxpayers of Tipp City and Monroe Community Township. Right now, some of the things that I think about every day over the last 6 weeks, one would be distance learning. And under distance learning, there could be many, many bullet points, just from the phone calls and the emails that I've had with parents, phone calls and conversations that I've had with Dr. Kampf and Mr. Verhoff and other board members. Distance learning is obviously something that we're all focused on, as we should be. Another thing on our plate would be COVID-19. That's constantly changing, as has been mentioned many times tonight, the legislation, and you can even put in that, the state budget. Nobody really knows what's going to happen with the state budget. And we also mentioned tonight facilities planning. Dr. Kampf let us know at the beginning of this meeting that, there's new information regarding that. And we don't know what it's going to look like in the fall when we head back into our buildings, or if we're going to head back, and what kind of a blended, learning experience we might have to face. Another thing we could focus on, or should be focusing on, is that Dr. Kampf is on her, her final 90 days. So with that, there should be some type of exit strategy. And I would say even more importantly is how does the 90-day exit strategy of Dr. Kump, how does that dovetail into Mr. Stefanik's first 90 days? So as a board member who works for the taxpayers of Tipp City and Monroe Township, those are some of the things that are constantly on my mind as a board member. So that's it for my president comments. So that takes us to approval of minutes. Okay. So for the approval of the minutes, we have the March 13th special meeting and the March 16th, 2020 regular meeting. Can I get anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second
Okay,
the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have Corinne and Joellen, Dave, first and second.
Can we also add as amended? If you'll look in your minutes, you'll see that there is an attachment that has corrections that Mrs. Dunaway provided to me. They don't change anything. They were just misspellings. So.
Okay.
Move to amend the motion to break the minutes apart into two separate motions, as I was not present on March 16th and would be required to abstain, where I could approve March 13th.
Okay, let me do that. So you want to split those, Simon?
That's my motion, yes, sir.
So you have a first, correct?
Second to that motion. It's okay to split them.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry about that. Okay, we have a motion and a second, Dave.
Okay.
If I may suggest that there's no vote required under policy 165.1. Essentially, this is a consent agenda for approval of prior minutes of two separate meetings, and therefore any member of the board may request an item removed from the consent resolution. And so there's no vote required. It just gets separated.
Oh, great.
Gotcha.
And
No vote required. All right, they've been split. So now, Simon, do we need votes on the two meetings themselves?
Yeah, I think I would move to approve the March 13th special meeting minutes as amended.
There are no amendments to March 13th.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. I guess we just vote. We're going to vote, Teresa. Patry?
Yes.
Heatherly?
Yes.
Dahl?
Yes.
Dunaway?
Yes.
Zakor?
Yes.
Okay. And then that would leave, we needed an approval for the March 16th regular meeting minutes as amended.
Make a motion to approve the March 16th minutes as amended.
And I will second. So Joellen and Teresa.
Okay. Ready for a vote?
Ready for a vote?
Heatherly?
Yes.
Dunaway?
Yes.
Dahl?
Yes.
Patry?
Abstain.
Zakor?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, Dave. You good?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. So that takes us to the treasurer's report, and we will start with your monthly financial report.
Can we get a motion to approve the monthly financial report for March 2020?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the monthly financial report.
I'll second.
Dunaway and Dahl. Motion and second.
All right. Are there any questions up front that I can respond to from board members this time? Okay. Just a few highlights from this month of March. We did receive final general property tax revenues for the remainder of the fiscal year 2020. Tax revenues, while they were lower than previous fiscal years in the month of March, it was just a timing issue. And if you look at all the tax revenues that came in this year, 2020 was higher than the previous 2 years. Let's see, homestead and rollback, that is for other revenue. Again, it's a timing issue just because they get received during different months of the year. Nothing unusual noted there. And I will say for our other revenues, interest revenue is down. Again, I expect it to go down even more. Our interest revenue is currently mirroring what we were seeing back in 2018, right when interest rates were starting to go back up. But I expect it to go down even further. So we'll be at pre-2018 interest rates here soon, where there was hardly anything coming in. As for expenditures, everything is currently going as planned. Our employee benefits and purchase services, our salaries, everything looks pretty good. Everything was explainable as to why there might be a difference. Some of it was timing. For our other expenditures, we're still showing that the ESC costs are higher this year than they have been in prior years. And in March of 2018, that was the month where we did our board transfer to the 003 fund to help fund the stadium turf installation. That was an advance. We're continuing to repay that money back to the general fund at $75,000 a year as it comes in from Premier Health. So other than that, our operations are still good right now. However, with the uncertainty of the budgets and things because of COVID-19, I expect to see expenditures down in the month of April as kids aren't in the building. Our utilities are most likely down, and supplies, expenses, things like that. So we'll just have to buckle in and go for a ride here as we see what happens to school district expenses, not just for us, but for the entire country. I know that all of our treasurers are like, what are you guys doing? What do you hear? What's going on? So I'll share anything important that comes up. The Employee Benefit Self-Insurance Fund, there is a note there that says that the month of March was the first time that we actually spent more than we brought in premiums. This is not unusual. We currently built up a large budget in that fund at the moment. And with all of the things that are currently going on, I'm pretty sure we've had a lot of people trying to get to the doctor and make sure everything's okay. So we still have $800,000 in this account as of March 31st. So that is money that in prior years we had paid to the ESC and now we're paying it to ourselves. So it's good to see that balance is still there, and hopefully we can use it to offset increases in future years. Any questions that I might be able to answer? Okay.
Seeing that there's none, we're ready for a vote.
Dunaway.
Yes.
Dahl.
Yes.
Heatherly.
Yes.
Patry.
Dane.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries. Or it's not really a motion. Sorry about that. Monthly financial report is approved.
Okay. All right. Next, I'd like to get a motion to approve the fiscal year 20 appropriation amendments.
I'll move.
I'll second. Moved and seconded by Dahl and Dunaway.
Any questions or concerns? All right. Just really quickly, local grant money was received. Federal government had provided some additional federal grant money that we budgeted for. And there was an increase in our general fund funding, the 016 fund, which is the emergency levy, just to cover the K-12 consulting contract, the Fallon contract, and the Tell for Kids service contract. So those were not things that we had budgeted for originally at the beginning of the school year. So we've got it in there now. Anything else?
I think we're good.
All right. Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Item C.
Looking for a motion for approval of the Ohio Revised Code 570541 purchase order certification, then and now for fiscal year 2020, March of 2020.
I'll move.
I'll second. Heatherly and Dunaway. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Just 3 items. We'll mark them as then and nows and try to make sure we pick those up next time.
Okay, ready for a vote, Dave?
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Motion, okay, thank you. Item 9, old business. Does anybody have any old business?
I do.
Go ahead.
Back in March, we had our fiscal audit that had concluded, and the district came out with very, very favorable outcome. And Dave, if you want to summarize some of that, I want to make sure that you get the accolades for your department and for the whole district for doing so well on that audit.
Joelle and I honestly have completely forgotten about the audit. It seems like forever ago.
It does seem like a long time ago.
We did receive a clean audit opinion on our fiscal year 19 financials. There were a few management letter comments. A couple were repeats. We're going to try to make sure that we get those taken care of. Hopefully we have time for that. But they're just small comments to deal with. One of them, though, I will point out was the procedure for determining whether or not an employee is a employee of the district or if they are a independent contractor. And so I had started to use an IRS federal form to determine that. There's a lot of subjective decision making on that. You know, one person could read it one way, another person could read it in another way. The safest thing to do is just make sure that if an auditor says, how did you determine what you pay them as? You provide them with that form showing you've done that. So we're going to make sure that we start using those for any questionable positions. So.
Hey, and Dave, didn't that come up because of the whole Stagecrafters situation?
Right. So we've discussed, I think we discussed that previously. Was that in February?
We haven't discussed it this year. It came up in the audit because it was referring to the Stagecrafters scenario.
No, but I believe that we discussed that when the last time we discussed Stagecrafters earlier this year. I had mentioned that we were going to use the IRS form. So, but anyway, so other than that, we had a nice clean opinion. And next thing you know, the auditors will be back again for this fiscal year that we're about to finish up in 2 months. It's hard to believe. So,
Well, congratulations, and just want to make sure you get credited for that. Aren't you glad you got it done?
yeah, so we could move on to bigger, better things. All right.
Hey, Dave, remember when he said he was going to send us an email? Because right now it's still marked confidential. And then with all the COVID-19, is that official yet?
I believe that it is official. If you go to their state's website, you will find the released report. So it is official.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anybody else?
Good job, Dave. Good job.
Thank you.
Sorry. Anybody else have anything under old business?
I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
I just feel it's very unfortunate that we have so much to be dealing with, and I certainly welcome and always appreciate public comments. But as a board, I'm very disappointed that after we've had numerous meetings on open enrollment, and then two different votes actually, and had very in-depth conversations about this at these meetings. I came prepared with my data. I looked at the CUP report. I was very familiar with that before we had that meeting. I know other members on the board were familiar with it and some were not. And for a topic that's this important, you know, I understand it's very detailed, maybe even interpretive to some. But the bottom line is we hashed it out over and over on the financial aspect. I'm sure there's not a total conclusion on those, but we made it clear that this was even more than just finances. So I find it very disappointing, in the interest of being a board and interest of following our policy, board policy 148, that someone would take it upon themselves to turn to several social media sites, relitigate this to the public, and expose false information to the public. I just do not find this ethical or productive to function as a board. That's all.
Thank you, Anne.
Well, I just might want to add, I find
Sorry.
actually it's a greater disservice to the people that we're serving to perpetuate incorrect information in such a vast and public forum. I feel it's very unfair to do that to the public as well as to serving our district.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Okay, any other old business?
I have some old business.
Go ahead, Simon.
I see that later on in the agenda, we have open enrollment, but it's the way it's titled makes it look like I may not have an opportunity to discuss it. So as we've heard from two members now on open enrollment and comments made, I think that it's appropriate. I just make it real quick. I made a public statement on Facebook and used generalized information, but and if something's inaccurate, I'm glad to look at it. The bottom line is I think it's important for our tax base to know, and people who vote for us in office, that a no vote on open enrollment is going to cost our school district a little under $400,000 in lost revenue. That's a fact. I've talked to Mr. Stevens, and Mr. Stevens indicated that he does not see where that would result in any measurable or meaningful reduction in our school district expenses. And when you look at the fact that this represents 33 students, it's not going to result in any noticeable or meaningful reduction in classroom sizes, which is something that I do care about. So when I think about those three factors, I think that those three factors are extremely important to our taxpayers and the school district as a whole. I think that those are more convincing to me than some of the anecdotal stories that have been shared against open enrollment. I felt it was important to bring this back up again because in our initial discussion of open enrollment in our work session, to which I came prepared on February 10th, 2020, the reasons for open enrollment and against open enrollment never mentioned the CUP report or a financial analysis. In fact, pros relate to open enrollment were that it did bring money to our school district. I did miss that meeting where we actually passed open enrollment. That I did as a result of having allergies and not knowing if it was COVID related and being responsible and adhering to the governor's instructions. And I regretted not being there, but we actually passed that. And during that vote, Ms. Dahl had voted in favor of open enrollment. The latest special meeting, when we talked about it, the considerable amount of time was devoted to how this was costing the school district money. The reality is voting no will cost us revenue, will simply increase our per student expense. Our next CUP report will show a higher student expense. And I think that the taxpayers are going to care about that, given the fact that we may be looking at a significant reduction in revenue in the future, given COVID-19. I felt all of that was a good reason to just have a quick discussion about it, to see if the rest of the members felt the same way, if that's the case. If you do, I will respect the vote. But I just felt that that was worthwhile sharing. It has nothing to do with a personal agenda or anybody that I'm trying to quote unquote protect. I do think that it's a win-win on the human side. We've heard from a lot of people that this will affect, and that reconciles with what I'm trying to do. I don't see any reason to hurt students when this isn't going to do anything for our school district in any objective criteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. And I will add, Dr. Kump sent myself and Corinne an email today. It was very late. I did not really have time to review it. I want to say I got it maybe at 5:15 or 5:20, but in the quick glance that I gave that document, Simon, I think that it showed that 15 of the 30 open enrolled students we don't receive any dollars for. So like I said, I have not had time to review that document, but I will have Dr. Kump send it to the entire school board so that we can all review it, and that will just give you another data point.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
I agree. Yeah, I wish we would have had that
roughly
sooner.
$400,000 is what I think Mr. Stevens indicated would be the case. Is that correct, Mr. Stevens? Are we going to lose roughly $400,000 as a result of a no vote on open enrollment?
Point of concern, Simon. This is not a question debate. This is just old topics. We're reviewing it. We're making comments. We're not dragging our superintendent and our treasurer into this conversation right now.
I'm just responding. Madam President just brought up the fact that I made a comment about the money, and I'm asking Mr. Stevens. It's a simple question. It can be answered. Mr. Stevens, is that correct?
Not during this
Well,
time.
not really, Simon. I'm the one who brought up the old business. And I pointed out board behavior in violation of policy 048. You glossed over that in your rebuttal to what I said. No, it's not really a laugh. You went out rogue to three very popular websites, stirred up a bee's nest with incorrect information. And as far as the CUP report, no, that wasn't provided by the district, but a lot of things aren't. And I take the time to get on the Ohio Department of Education website, a very credible site, to get my information, as well as to turn to the treasurer, so that I can come, and it's a big topic. I get that. Finances is an important part of it, but there are other aspects of this topic as well, which you did not mention when you went to your three websites. The bottom line is, I think that we as a community have some serious things ahead of us to decide for our district, with a new superintendent coming in, facilities. And we spent 5 meetings on this topic. And I spent a great deal of time that you obviously did not, because you didn't even know what the CUP report was. And so to come in here and play Monday morning quarterback after the vote's been taken legitimately, and to have people say very negative comments about this board and our president, I find it offensive. And I hope we never repeat this again. And policy 148, since you're very procedural and policy oriented, would be good for your review.
I read policy 148, Ann, and I did not violate it. I was very careful not to violate it.
You relitigated a topic that a board decided because it didn't suit your outcome.
No, I felt it was important that our taxpayers know that this board is on the verge of losing this district $400,000.
We had meetings to devote that
objective
conversation to,
criteria of
Simon.
benefit.
We had meetings with that conversation. A decision was made.
No, this is on the agenda later, and we could probably move to.
Actually violating the board policy and actually having board decorum and curtailing our views and relitigating to the public is not on the agenda, Joellen, which is why I'm bringing it up now under old
I
business.
understand why we're afraid of transparency and reporting what's happening here today.
I totally embrace transparency, which is why I do so much research to find out where things are and what more I like to learn about. And so when you talk about transparency, that's why I turned to the CUP report. I wanted to dig in deeper and learn more on the numbers.
Well, then I welcome the statements that indicate where on the bottom line, we're going to cut $400,000 of.
Here again, you're rehashing. You want to continue to re-debate a topic that was legitimately but voted on.
That's my right.
Not under old business.
No.
I think we should move the meeting on to new business.
I do too.
Do we have any other comments under old business that haven't already been discussed in the 5 or so minutes that we've been discussing old business? Are we good? Okay. So that I will turn the meeting over to Dr. Kumpf under new business. You're on mute, Dr. Kumpf. There you go.
Got it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Item A, under new business, recommend approval to accept the following resignations as per the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
I'll make a motion.
I already made the motion. Do you want a second, Joellen?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay, perfect. So Dunaway and Heatherly, Dave, motion and second. Any discussion? Okay, Dave, ready for a vote? Oh, hey, Dave, you're on mute. Did you know that? Sorry.
Dunaway.
Oh, yes.
No, Heatherly.
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Okay. Dahl?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Zakor?
Yes.
All right, let's not do that again.
Okay, motion carries.
Item B, recommend approval to employ the following as certified teachers on a limited contract for the 2020-2021 school year, pending proper certification and paperwork. Caitlin Chester and Taylor Imwa.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and second, Dunaway and Dahl. Is there any discussion? Seeing that there's no discussion, we're ready for a vote, Dave.
Dunaway?
Yes?
Dahl?
Yes.
Heatherly?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Zakor?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item C, recommend approval of the following substitute staff for the 2019-2020 school year, pending proper certification and paperwork. James Jones III, substitute bus driver.
Motion.
Second.
Go ahead. Heatherly and Dahl, motion and second. Is there any discussion? Ready for a vote, Dave?
Heatherly?
Yes.
Dahl?
Yes.
Dunaway?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Zakor?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item D, recommend approval to correct the following contract due to a clerical error. Evan Duffy, High School Musical, from step 1 to step 3. Evan was originally approved on the February 24th, 2020 agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and second, Dunaway and Heatherly. Any discussion? Ready for a vote, Dave?
Dunaway?
Yes?
Heatherly?
Yes.
Dahl?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Zakor?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item E, recommend approval of the attached running list of substitutes holding an active license with the Ohio Department of Education.
I'll motion.
Second.
Motion and second, Dahl and Zakor. Is there any discussion?
I'll just make a comment that Neola had recommended this to us the last time that we were with them. And I believe this is the second time we've done this now. And we will do it each month.
Okay, ready for a vote, Dave?
Dahl?
Yes.
Zakor?
Yes.
Dunaway?
Yes?
Heatherly?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item F, recommend approval of payment for the following staff members for their work throughout the 2019-2020 school year. Nick Culver, Lisa Coball, Gabrielle Andersons, Jennifer Brown, Patty Cahill, Deb Fetters, Joan Lucas, and April R. Taylor.
I'll second.
Motion.
Motion and second, Heatherly and Dahl. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to point out this particular service is for LPDC, that's our Licensure Professional Development Committee. And that's important for keeping our license up and for all of our certified staff that's submitted through them and vetted about the step before it's then submitted to the state.
I have a question, Dr. Kumpf.
Yes.
Is this like a volunteer thing? Do people get chosen? How do we come up with these committee members?
Many of these members have been on for a period of time and they roll over. For example, Mrs. Coball has been on for a number of years. And part of that is that consistency and the understanding of just the procedures of all that. But they are representing from their buildings. So I believe that their principals asked for a representative and someone that would like to serve in that role, and some of them have particular interests. And from time to time, then it does change, but I think that they do re-ask the person if they would like to continue to serve because they learn more year after year as they serve on the committee.
Okay, thank you. Did anybody else have any questions?
So these are all employees, Dr. Kump?
Yes, they are all employees. And like, say, for example, if there would be a representative from the middle school, then that representative would help those middle school teachers as they are gathering their information for professional development hours and understanding the necessary electronic paperwork and other submissions that would be evidence of that professional development that would then be submitted to the committee for their renewal of their licensure.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're ready for a vote unless there's any further discussion. Ready, Dave?
Heatherly. Joellen, did you say yes? Okay. I'm gonna have to watch your face. Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Before.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item G, recommend the approval of the 2021 tax budget for the Tipp City Library.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded by Heatherly and Patry. And Dave, are they going to jump in on this call, or Asha or Lisa going to?
They are currently logging into this meeting as we speak.
Okay, great.
Yep, we're here. Hello.
Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Camera should be starting soon.
Do you want to be seen?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. I put makeup on for tonight.
Really are apart.
Yeah, we're trying.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us and for your continued support of the library. For those of you who are new to the board, we are a school district library like most libraries in the state of Ohio and are required by Ohio Revised Code to present our tax budget to our district school board. So there are many public libraries in the United States. There are more public libraries than there are Starbucks. Libraries are a smart community investment, with our local Tipp City Library providing an economic value of approximately $245 per patron, or just shy of $1,000 of services and programming for a family of 4. This is an unprecedented time, and the Tipp City's public library will be an essential partner in the community's economic recovery efforts. You have been provided with a 2021 tax budget based on the estimates provided to us by the Miami County Auditor. We continue to operate within budget while providing unique and relevant material and programming to the community. Both the director and I are aware and are currently planning for possible changes to the county auditor's estimates while continuing to maintain services, programming, and support for our patrons. The director will fill you in on our upcoming plans.
Hello. So one of the things that we are very interested in doing is supporting the school district. I'm pleased that the relationship has grown. I've been thrilled to work with Steve Veerhoff on a lot of projects. One that I'm very proud of is the Dayton Literary Peace Prize collaboration. We look forward to a continued effort in that regard. One of the things I need to think about is keeping our connectivity with the school district. I know we only have a limited amount of time, but I need to thank the teachers that have come to the library to read for story time. I opened this up and I have a list of the teachers that I need to recognize. Actually, it came from my friend, Miss Amy Blake, who said, give me something to do. I miss my students and I want to see them. And so she came to me with the idea of story time. So Amy Blake, I'll recognize Simon Patry also came right away and said, I want to read. Who else? Clayton Lavercombe, Kimberly Fisher, Mr. G, Cindy Wildermuth, Wendy Torrance, Ann Toohey, Jeannie Moore, Nancy Souter, and Chris Zink. Mr. Veerhoff is this Friday. I have to tell you, Mr. Zink has a record right now on our site of over 1,200 views of his dad jokes. So, I mean, there's lots of things that we could talk about. I know our time is limited. We're very concerned about our budget. As Asha mentioned, in the way that we exist really was unique to Ohio, and now it could be something unique in the sense of how we exist because it's based on our economy. So we are looking for ways that we will continue to reach our community, which really are the students. My biggest concern is what we call summer slide, and that could be a summer avalanche of literacy. So we are looking at ways that we can continue to promote reading, writing, and creating information. So I look forward to working with all of you on that. We're also looking at, we've increased our Wi-Fi in the building. We've boosted it to the sidewalks and our parking lot. And I have to tell you, there are times where I come up in the evening and I'm a little freaked out because there's people parked back there. And then I realize they're using the Wi-Fi. I forget that that's one of the things I told them they could do, and they're using it. And it actually went up 250 uses in March as the building was closed. We had an increase of 200 logins, and we were only closed from the 14th on, that's odd. So do you have any questions for Asha and I? She's on the other side. We're just flipping around. If there's any of those numbers there or anything you need to ask about. I can let you know on Monday, May 4th, I've made the decision to open up the back part of our library for what we're calling grab and go story time. Books will be wrapped based on topics. People can call from the back door and ask for a set of books, and we will check them out to them, put them out there when they're not there, and they can come and grab and go. I have to tell you, we've had parents come with suitcases and just take an entire shelf of books so that they could have them at their home. So I wait for that avalanche of books to be returned at the same time. Here's Asha.
We're also available at any time. Dave does have both of our email addresses. If you have any questions, please feel free to utilize the email as well.
Welcome to a board meeting. If you wanted to come to one of our board meetings.
Yes, our next board meeting is May 28th at 6:30 at the library. And the link to our virtual meeting is on our website.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dave. We're done.
Yeah, that's it. If anyone had any questions, we tried to limit it to 5 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I want to say thank you so much. The library was always a haven for me as a child. I love the Tipp City Library. It's just so cozy and welcoming and cheerful, and the staff are so nice. So
thank you.
Thank you very much for what you do. It's a hot spot for Tipp.
Yeah, in a good way.
In a good way, yeah.
Definitely.
So, Mr. Veerhoff, do you have any jokes ready for
yeah, Friday.
Some big shoes to fill there.
I do not, but I am practicing Dragons Love Tacos. That's one of our favorites in our house, and I may take a guest reader with me if that's allowed.
That is allowed.
Fun. That'll be fun.
I open it to all of you. If anyone would like to come, you have my email. We are deciding to do live at 11 from the library. It's usually myself and the reader. If you want to read, I'm looking for more teachers. Actually, if Mr. Veerhoff allows me, I had an idea. Would that be okay, Mr. Veerhoff, to mention it?
Go for it.
You want to wait?
No, I think that's okay.
Okay, just make sure. I had an idea that we could open it up to the graduating seniors if they wanted to read anything, something that impacted them during their school year. Read a comment from a teacher, a piece of poetry, music lyrics, something that they remember from their school time that I would put them and let them broadcast live through the library website. So I do open that up for them. I presented that to Mr. Zink and Mr. Veerhoff as an idea. I know you're all busy, but we will be doing that over the month of May and June as well. So I welcome them if you want to present it through the students.
That's an awesome idea, Lisa. I really like that a lot.
I do too. It gives them a voice and they've been forgotten, so yes, it's amazing.
There's also a delay button. I'm sure Dave knows about that. I can shut it down if I need to.
Well, I also like the part, like she said, it could be a piece of poetry, it could be a piece of music, whatever was important to them. That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Are we ready for a vote?
Yeah, I think they have to vote on our budget. So I can tell our board you voted yes.
Dave, I don't see Dave. I lost Dave for some reason. There he is. Okay.
I haven't gone anywhere.
Sorry, my screen changed when they popped up. So, okay. Is there any further discussion? We're ready for a vote, Dave.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right.
See you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Item H, recommend approval to adopt social studies curriculum materials to be implemented in the 2020-2021 school year for grades K through 12.
I'll move.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Dahl and Zakor. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to thank Mr. Veerhoff and the entire committee. They've done a very nice job. Nice presentation tonight. And once again, I appreciate it remaining on timeline, even with the coronavirus and the school mandated closure. So that's great.
Okay, Dave, we're ready for a vote. No further discussion.
You're on mute, Dave.
Hey,
Dahl?
sorry. There you go, Dave.
Yes.
Zakor,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patry.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item I, recommend approval of 206 graduates for the graduation class of 2020, subject to successful completion of all requirements for graduation and fulfillment of all obligations. The seniors' last day will be May 22nd. Seniors will be exempt from school on May 26th, 27th, and 28th, 2020.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion and second by Dunaway and Dahl. Is there any discussion?
Congratulations, seniors.
Yay, congratulations. And 2 board members have students on this list. That's kind of exciting.
That's great.
Okay, we're ready for a vote.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patry,
Yes.
Lecore.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item J, recommend approval of the following tuition students for the 2021 school year as per the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion and second by Heatherly and Patry. Any discussion?
Dr. Kumpf, I was trying to find our school policies that allow for tuition students without an open enrollment policy being passed, and I could not find one. Do you know what policy this would fall under?
I cannot give you that number right now without some research.
I believe it's 5111.
I believe 5111 is.
Go ahead.
I believe that was an open enrollment policy.
Yeah, that is open enrollment.
Yeah, 5111 was strictly dealing with open enrollment.
It has a non-tuition piece, but it does. There's a separate one that is on tuition.
Are you thinking of 5113?
Yes, check that one. Do you want me to get in the system and look here for a little bit?
Go ahead. I might have a copy of it.
Okay.
No, go ahead and check, and I print lots of policies, so maybe I might be able to find it before you pull it up. 5113.
While you're looking for that, should we be talking about what the tuition rate is?
Under policy 6150, the tuition rate is determined by the state.
Yeah, and right now it's $6,020. Is that correct, Dave?
No,
$6,843.19.
Oh, gotcha.
There you go. Yep.
Yes, it is published by the state, but again, it goes back to accessing that information, which is on the Ohio Department of Education's website. So I just think that if, you know, since this is a topic, it's good for the discussion to know that for the 2019-20 school year, it's set at $6,843.19.
Well, I couldn't find even a policy, Anne, that allows us to have tuition students.
It's
Without
6150.
open enrollment.
Right, without the open enrollment.
Policy 6150, tuition income states, quote, "The Board of Education shall assess tuition for attendance in district schools by students who are not entitled to receive a free public."
Could you allow me to get there? What's that policy number, please?
I think you said 6150. It's hard to hear. 6150.
6150 is, okay.
6150, tuition income.
Okay, 1 second.
I don't think that that's a.
Well,
tuition.
the way I read it, who are not entitled to receive a free public education in this district and whose enrollment has been approved by the board.
Yeah,
So-
but I don't think that's the same thing as a tuition policy. If you look at like our open enrollment policy, it lists how we select them, criteria, the process, the deadlines. This is just how, this is not a policy to incorporate tuition students by any
When you
means.
look at policy 5113 in conjunction with 6150, I believe that this provides our board the requisite authority to move to approve tuition students that are not entitled to attend our school district so long as they pay the tuition as provided by the state, which we all know what it is now. And so I'm in favor of that. I think Ms. Heatherly's in favor of it.
I don't think that this policy is as you interpret it, Simon.
Yeah, I see what Corinne's saying because it is titled tuition income. So that's kind of, you know.
Well, where else would we have tuition income from students other than open enrollment and
Right, and that's kind of what we're discussing is because this is the first time in 10 years that we've been, you know, a non-open enrollment district.
It is 5111.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at too.
Yeah.
5111.
What section did you see it? Oh, mandatory admission payment of tuition.
I think 5111 is eligibility of residents and non-residents.
Yes, it is.
Correct.
And there's an option. Yeah, there's lots of different. So.
Well, yeah, it'd fall under there, wouldn't it? And then optional tuition.
Yeah, there's an optional tuition.
Right. It's talking about how children that aren't residents can attend the district by paying tuition and then optional tuition-free education.
Right.
So if the district admits a student of the district who is not otherwise entitled to attend, or whose attendance tuition is not an obligation of another district, the board shall collect tuition from the student's parents. Tuition rate shall be determined as required by Ohio statutes.
Right. It says the board may admit students, may admit. So.
Well, right under that, it says the board shall admit students who reside in the district, but below, I don't know. That's in that same section. I was just looking at it. It is at the lower part of 5111.
But if they're residing in the district, then they're not going to be charged tuition. So.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important, again, going back to it's a lot of factors, and the 2019-2020 tuition rate, according to the ODE for Tipp City, is $6,843.19. That's 2019-20, but also on the CUP report for fiscal year 19, let's not forget, again, we have that total expenditure per student, which is $10,283.19. And it's my understanding that a school, and I wish I was wrong on this, but I think that you have to stick with that number, $6,843.19. Dave, you're shaking your head, yes. So the school does not have the ability to say, well, if it costs over $10,000 to educate a student, therefore we're going to charge that equal amount for tuition. My point being, again, it looks like we would be operating at a deficit.
I mean, this goes back to the whole open enrollment. We wouldn't be at a deficit because they're not going to increase our cost per student in that manner. But I think that it sounds like we've got a genuine issue as to whether we have a policy that we're allowed to do this under. My suggestion would be is to table it for now and then get opinion from our legal counsel as to what we can and cannot do. Once we have that understanding, then we can proceed either as our conscience sees fit.
Well, and here's another, I think, valid question. If you're going to open up open enrollment for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 kids, then, and you, excuse me, that's wrong. I didn't mean to say open enrollment. If you're going to allow students to come in under tuition, then would you also have to be allowing any other student that can pay that tuition to come in? I mean, what gives you the basis to say, well, these students can pay tuition, we're going to allow them. These students can pay tuition, but we're not going to allow them. Do you see what I'm saying? Are you opening up a door that?
Correct.
Those are valid questions. And I think that tabling it for a work session with Dave Lampe present to be able to answer some of those questions and having some subject matter notice in advance would be useful.
I also have an idea. I'm going to make a motion right now that we not accept tuition for the 2020-21 school year. Do I have a second?
There's a
Second.
motion that's been seconded already before this board. And so I think we first have to vote on that or table it.
Well, we've already motioned it and seconded, so don't we have to vote on it at this point? I can't remember who motioned and who seconded. Dave,
Lily motioned and I seconded.
okay.
Motioned for what? I'm getting confused.
We have, right now, we have a motion and a second
For item J.
for item J.
That
So
allows us to discuss.
we've had discussion. Is there any further discussion on item J before we vote?
Well, I thought you motioned to table that, Simon.
Well,
I think
If
somebody
we want
seconded
to.
that. So
he made made a suggestion that we table it for a work session.
Are there any time
Discuss
frames
this.
that will be met for compliance to acknowledge these applications?
Well,
Joey, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Are there any timeframes that we need to acknowledge based on these applications for tuition?
Well, I would imagine that they want to, know sooner rather than later.
Well, actually, Teresa, that's kind of my point, that we don't have a policy on how
Right.
to accept tuition students. We don't have guidelines. We don't have structure. So it's a mess.
but we have been doing it for years. And I know that doesn't make it,
I think we've been doing it.
there
under
is a
open
procedure.
enrollment.
And I've not looked in the administrative guidelines to see if there's any forms in there.
Right. And I think we've been doing them under open enrollment, following the procedures that we would follow with open enrollment. And without that structure, we have no structure for tuition students.
We still have a different form for tuition students to complete, I thought,
Yes, which we've got submitted as an attachment.
for the executive, for the board to see.
Well, I'd like to motion then to amend the motion for voting on tuition students until we can to table that motion.
Well, I think that's what Simon suggested.
So I think that Ann's seconding my tabling of the,
Is that correct, Ann?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
to vote on that first motion,
We need to vote on the first motion. This is starting to become ridiculous and I'm becoming frustrated.
Right, the first motion was
To allow the 5 students.
correct. The first motion was Patry and Heatherly, motioned in second. We had discussion. So we need to now vote on item J, which is the tuition students. Correct, Dave?
I say, whatever I say will probably be wrong. So,
Well, no, that was the original motion on the floor.
well, I mean, we've had motions before, and then we've had a motion to change that, and we've motioned to move other things without going back to the original motions. So we've done 2 different ways in the past now. And so I would like to just move forward with this vote and not drag it on and have this go forever. But I'm not a board member, but that's just my suggestion.
Well, we've already had discussion, so I say we vote.
So to clarify, we'll be voting to approve.
That is correct. The original motion is J, approval of the following tuition students for the 2020-21 school year. And it was, I believe it was Patry and Heatherly, if I'm correct.
Heatherly first, Patry second.
Sorry, Heatherly, Patry. So we've already had discussion. So at this point, we're ready for a vote.
Okay. Heatherly,
Yes.
Patry,
yes.
Dahl,
No.
Dunaway,
No,
Zakor.
no.
motion fails. So now we also have on the floor, Simon made a motion and Ann did a second, and they wanted to table the discussion. So now we need to vote on that.
No, that wasn't what I was doing. It was,
I'm sorry, Ann, I thought you were seconding Simon's motion that we table this.
I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
thought
we
we were
tabled the
talking
dis-
about having the discussion more on,
At the workstation.
on tuition, yeah.
I think,
Like, I asked the question, if you allow 5 to come in under
Okay.
tuition, but then another 5 apply and you say no,
Okay, I understand.
but
Simon, do you have any? Sorry, Ann, are you finished?
yes, I am.
Sorry, it's hard with the delay. Simon, did you have anything else to add with that
Yeah,
motion to table?
The request to lay that motion to the table for further discussion has now been rendered moot by the vote. And so
Correct.
other than suggesting that we further explore this at work session, unless the fact that we could do this under a policy, if that's the reason people voted no, that might be helpful for us to do it. But if everybody's going to vote no, it's going to be a moot issue. So
Well, yeah, and the other thing too,
I'll leave that to the discretion of the president and the vice president, along with Dr. Kumpf, to discuss at the next agenda meeting.
Yeah, and I do, the last thing I don't want these to be trickling in every month, where every month this comes back up on our agenda. So I would like to make a motion that we do not accept tuition for the 2020-2021 school year. And then we're just done with it. So I have a motion on the floor if anybody would like to second.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second by Dunaway and Dahl. A motion to not accept tuition for the 2020-2021 school year. Is there a discussion?
There is. I have some discussion on that.
Sure, go ahead, Simon.
So if I understanding what you're attempting to do right now is, without an understanding of whether we have the right to do this under a current policy or a statute, you are attempting to preclude this board ever reconsidering this issue without exploring our right to do so for the rest of the 2021 school year. Is that correct?
Correct. I feel like we've been discussing this since February 8th or 9th.
We've been discussing tuition students since February of 2020.
Well, we first had our first work session about open enrollment. I believe it was February 8th or 9th.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Madam President, the current vote relates to tuition students outside of open enrollment, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
But you asked me a question, I was trying to answer it.
I feel that prior to voting on this in an affirmative, it would be useful for us to understanding the financial impact, if any, of these students would be. It would be important for us to understand whether we have the legal rights to say yes or no, whether any policy exists that may require or create a presumptive admittance, and consider if there is no significant financial impact, potentially the emotional impact of these students that are denied. And so I would urge us to table this for further discussion and not vote in the affirmative of the motion.
Is there any other further discussion?
Simon, the reason why I was suggesting that is because it is my belief that we do not currently have a policy and guidelines for implementing tuition students, such as all students need to have their application in by May 1st. All students need to have one letter of recommendation included with that attachment. Just general guidelines of how we administer looking through those tuition applications, because I think Anne kind of hinted at it. It does seem like an equity and fairness issue that students that would want to come and couldn't pay that tuition rate won't be able to come. So absent any guidelines to deal with all of those, I don't think that it's even really feasible for this board to move forward with collecting those applications. And to your point, dealing with the emotions involved with submitting an application. And we need a really clear guideline and structure for accepting those moving forward. And given that you have to do so many reads of a policy, I don't think that we could possibly craft a policy and read it the 2 or 3 times required and then adopt it and have any way in that time frame to actually get those kids into the district. That's my reasoning, so that we don't have any more heartache and heartbreak with families or students.
I totally echo that, Corinne, because I don't believe, I didn't see a tuition policy. In other words, I did my research. Well, you know, that's what I do, Simon. I take these issues, I try to look at them in many directions, and I do take the time to seek questions, to seek answers to my questions. So to that point, there are many school districts, Northmont just being one of them, that have these guidelines in terms of GPA requirement, in terms of attendance, in terms of discipline. And I don't think that we have that for Tipp schools on tuition. I didn't see it. And so, and we are at the end, getting closer to the end of the year. We're moving into May. And like Corinne said, it takes how many reads? Two reads?
Two reads.
Okay, so there's the research to be involved, and then the 2 readings. We have huge issues on our plate. Let's not forget our graduating class of 2020, trying to get, you know, their once in a lifetime moment worked out. We have COVID-19. We have a new superintendent coming in. We have facility issues. I just feel like we're getting really in the weeds, and we need to think. I work for the Tipp City taxpayers and the Tipp City residents. I'm on the Tipp City Board of Education. And we have big issues in this district that I believe we need to be putting in a higher priority right now. And we need to have a policy in place in order as one of the components, which we don't. So I just can't believe the time.
So I will just raise the question on the 6150, I believe it was, that, oh no, actually ended up being the 5111. That was the lower portion of that, where we were reading aloud, that talked about the tuition students. And it had a beginning part, but it was lower in that paragraph. I do feel that the district has been relying on some aspect of our policy because we have had tuition for some time. Now, it's the board's decision, you know, and there was a decision of no, that you weren't accepting those that were brought forth. But I asked myself, you know, there's some things that we need to get worked out to be more clarified. If you, as a board, feel that, you know, the criteria and some of these things that you see other districts doing that make that a stronger component. I just also think that since it has been something that's been over a number of years, that this group of students are in a sense being caught in the middle, that, you know, once again, we have 2 in this list today that happen to be incoming seniors. So, and that's just a difficult thing, that it had been available even a year ago, and now it's not available as an option based on the interpretation potentially of our current policy, which would have been the same for last year. So that's just a difficult thing.
Of course it's difficult, but you know, I want to go back to something. And again, here we are rehashing things. I appreciate all this dialogue, but one component that just seems to not really ever get emphasized is that nobody forced these students to come in on open enrollment. They had options to secure a spot in the district. I feel like, you know, the forms never stated otherwise. Didn't they state year after year that this is not a guarantee?
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I wrong on that, anybody?
No, it states on the form. There's been a lot of parents have on social media said, we were an open enrolled family. We did not want this to happen to our children, so we chose to move to Tipp City Schools District. It even says in the parent said, it says right on the form, this is not a guarantee. It's a year-to-year decision. We did not change the rules midstream. Everybody knew that if you don't live in Tipp City School District at any time, that policy could change.
That's right. And I mean, as far as COVID-19, I've heard that as an argument. Frankly, to be honest with you, I find it to be an excuse. The lending mortgage rates, fixed rates have been just outstanding the past several years. There was plenty of opportunity to jump into the housing market prior to COVID-19. We're supposed to be teaching individual responsibility as a district. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound abrupt with these families. It is a heartbreak. But to shift this to be somehow the board as being these ogred people, I just don't buy into it. The responsibility to secure a spot for your child has always been there. Maybe it was taken for granted for a lot of years, but don't come back now and start blaming the board because it's the policy changed. That's what you do when you open enroll. You throw the dice. It's like when you take a variable mortgage rate. You may not like it when the variable mortgage rate increases and it's out of your budget, but you either pay that or you flip it over to a fixed rate, something that you can live with and be guaranteed. Where is the individual responsibility here? And again, I go back to my loyalty, my job stays with the Tipp City residents and taxpayers. And I feel we need to start refocusing these conversations back to district matters that are more comprehensive and broad and focused on our residents and taxpayers. We have a lot of issues to go through moving forward.
On that note, I think we should move forward and vote on whether or not we're going to accept any more this year, and then just move forward to item K.
Steven, ready for a vote? Oh, he's on mute. Dave, you're on mute.
Yes.
I'm on mute.
Okay,
go
what
ahead.
are we voting on? Are we voting on moving this to a work session, or are we voting to not accept any more applications for tuition?
The motion is to not accept any tuition for the academic school year of 2021. So to end tuition. Dave, do you want to read the motion?
Motion to not accept tuition students for the 2021 school year.
Okay, Dave.
You know what, Teresa?
What?
I'm sorry. I don't know legally if we're allowed to say that. I think that really what we should do is just table it and have a meeting about crafting a policy to guide tuition students moving forward, since we don't have a policy, because I think we have to have some kind of tuition policy per Ohio Revised Code.
Well, I think we have one, and so I agree.
I wonder if we're not going to step on our own toes. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I do. Hey, Simon, could you repeat your comment because you beeped out?
I said I agree with Corinne.
Okay.
It needs to be tabled and explored to understand whether we have a policy and whether we need a policy to be defined or better clarified. If we've been operating as if we have a policy over a period of years, that's going to create some problems for us. And I think that should be done with David Lampy's help.
We don't have a policy on tuition. That's my whole point. There's no guidelines on it.
Right. So let's table it for a work session and just move on to item K.
Okay, so right now we have a motion and a second, so we'll just, Dave, do you have a motion and a second on this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll just vote no, and then we'll table it for a work session, which will be Monday. And we can reach out to Helen Carroll to see what she thinks about this, and we can discuss it at the Monday work session.
If we have space on the Monday, Teresa, we don't know if we have space on that one.
Correct. We'll see. I do want to get it done sooner rather than later, though.
Right.
And if we have to have a special meeting and a few meetings to read the policy, I want to do that because I don't want to leave these families, kind of in that gray area. I want them to be able to have an answer as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're just going to table it, Dave.
Well, we already took the vote on the students, right?
Right.
Yeah, we already voted on the.
So those families do have an answer. Is that correct?
Yeah, the answer is no.
Okay, I just was clarifying. So you're
So,
talking
and then
about,
we're going to work with Helen Carroll to develop some type of policy, since we are now non-open enroll, and to get some policy language referencing tuition.
I think because we have a motion and a second, we have to do a roll call, and what we'll do is just vote no. So
Correct.
it doesn't pass.
Yep. So is there any further discussion, or can I call for a vote? Dave, do you want to call roll?
Dunaway.
No.
Dahl.
No.
Heatherly.
No.
Patry.
No.
Four.
no.
Motion fails, and we'll table it for a work session.
Item K. Did we say motion fail?
Yeah, motion failed. I said it.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
It's
All
okay.
right. Item K, recommend approval to accept $5,583.77 and grant dollars from the Tipp Foundation. And I would like to highlight those.
Oh, go ahead.
Do we need the first and second before I do that?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion and second by Dunaway and Patry. Is there any discussion, Dr. Kumpf?
Yes, I just wanted to highlight what those actual grants were, and we always appreciate the Tipp Foundation. Nevin Kopic Elementary, it was Will Hildebrand, which was an author and illustrator. We had Nevin Kopic with a Muse Machine Artist in Residence program, and had Broadway Elementary with Insects and Owl Pellets for the second grade science, and the middle school with Like an Original Documentary. LIKE, an original documentary, and the high school with Stagecrafters. So Mr. Vierhoff may want to add here, we know that there are some things that were embedded in our school year. Other things will be the things that they will be doing as they start the school year next year. And I know there has been some conversation with the foundation. Mr. Vierhoff, did you want to comment on that?
No, Dr. Kumpf, I think that pretty much covers it. Kim Hagan did a great job in coordinating a lot of that.
Great. So we always appreciate the foundation, and we love these activities. They do enrich our classrooms and our students' opportunities and learning. And the ones that we can do, we'll move forward on, and the others we will regroup and see when and where we can utilize that and work with the foundation on how that will best be done.
Okay, any further discussion? Dave, we're ready for a vote.
Dunaway.
Yes.
Patry.
Yes.
Dahl. She stepped away.
Correct.
Heatherly. Zakor.
Yes.
Did you get a vote from Heatherly?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear. Okay, motion carries.
Corinne, do you want to vote?
Yes.
Oh, she's back.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Item L, recommend approval to accept $750 donation from the Dunaway Family Foundation to support Infernal, a literary publication at Tippecanoe High School.
I'll move.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded by Dahl and Zakor. Is there any discussion?
I'll just say the Infernal is a great publication, and Miss Noel does a great job with that. And the students are amazing. And in past, they have done a presentation in the sharing of their work down at the roller mill. Unfortunately, that's not going to be possible. It doesn't appear, but hopefully they'll do something virtual or work through that. But first, we get it published. So that's awesome.
It's amazing. I saw it too, and they're young authors. You know, whether it's short story, fiction, it's just beautiful. And also, thank you for the contribution from the Dunaways.
Dr. Kumpf, maybe they can work with the library and do those senior reads. Maybe,
Oh,
maybe
that's a
that-
great idea, actually.
Oh,
Yep.
because they do that at the Roller Mill, but maybe Mr. Verhoff and Lisa Santucci can work that out.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That's a great venue, actually.
Okay,
And thank you
how about
Teresa, for
Dave?
your continued
Oh.
generous support of Tipp Schools.
Okay. We're ready, Dave?
Dahl,
Yes.
Zakor,
yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item M, recommend motion to approve a waiver of monthly rent for the Tipp City Enrichment Program during months where they are not in session during mandated closure due to COVID-19, starting with April 2020 and through June 2020.
I'll move.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Dahl and Zakor. Is there any discussion?
No, except that the TCEP is just, I think they do an amazing job given their resources that they have to work with.
Yeah, they're definitely, as we heard in the citizen comments, they're definitely an asset to our school district. And they do a great job of getting the kids kindergarten ready. I thought that was great that she mentioned that. Any other comments? Discussion? We're ready for a vote, Dave.
Dahl,
Yes.
Zakor,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item N, recommend approval of permission to contract transportation with Troy Christian Schools for the 2020-2021 school year. Troy Christian will provide transportation for students enrolled at Troy Christian School, but reside within the Tipp City Exempted Village School District.
Can we get a motion in a second?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion in a second, Heatherly and Dahl. Is there any discussion? Dave, we're ready for a vote.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item O, recommend approval of permission to contract transportation with Senior Assistance Incorporated for the 2020-2021 school year. Senior Assistance Incorporated will provide transportation to and from the Ohio State School for the Blind in Columbus, Ohio, for one student.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion and second, Dunaway and Dahl. Is there any discussion? Ready for a vote, Dave?
Dunaway,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item P, recommend approval of Premier Occupational Health in Troy, Ohio as the agent for driver physicals and drug alcohol testing for the 2020-2021 school year.
Make the motion.
I'll second. Motion and second by Heatherly and Dunaway. Is there any discussion? Ready for a vote, Dave?
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Zakor.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item Q, recommend approval of the general service contract with META, META, Metropolitan Educational Technology Association for fiscal year 2021.
I'll motion.
I'll second. Motion and second, Dahl and Dunaway. Is there any discussion?
Dave, do you want to just basically say what their service is?
Yeah, so Meta, we contact with them every year. They provide, they're our ITC site. They're the ones that provide all of our software services for our financial software, our student software, and this contract is keeping the same price as we had in 2019, 2020. So they aren't raising the rates on us. Also, I noted in the comments that if we pay our bill in full at the beginning of the year before July 10th, they do offer a 2% discount. I mean, it's $800, but I always make sure we get that $800 discount. So I hand deliver it to their office to make sure that there's no funny business and it getting there late. So, yeah.
Great.
Yeah. They're a very good group to work with this transition that we've recently had to the state software, the new redesign program. We've relied on them a lot to ask and answer questions, and it's a good group.
Well, thank you. I think we're ready for a vote.
Dahl?
Yes.
Dunaway?
Yes.
Heatherly?
Yes.
Patry?
Yes.
Secor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Item R, recommend motion to approve the contract for the fiscal year 2021 with Miami County Educational Service Center.
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second, Heatherly and Dahl. Is there any discussion?
We work closely with Miami County ESC, and they provide us a wide variety of services and support.
The document that you have attached, is that all different services that we are currently receiving from them? Because I see EMIS coordinator on there, and I thought we had our own EMIS coordinator.
We do have our own EMIS coordinator. They provide, oh no, they don't. Which page is that on?
It's on the second attachment. Page.
Second page.
Right.
You know, it says upon request from the district superintendent, they'll employ one for us. We're not going to request that. So, I mean, it's just there in case something were to happen.
Yeah, I think that's probably, they have their kind of their running list of services that they have available. In the past, certainly we did use it. It is nice having our own EMIS coordinator in-house.
Because I don't recall, I mean, we don't use extended school year staff.
No, we don't.
Yeah, I think this is their book of all of the services they can provide for the district if needed.
Thank you.
Good question.
I think we're ready for a vote, Dave.
Heatherly?
Yes.
Dahl?
Yes.
Dunaway?
Yes.
Patry?
Yes.
Secor?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item S, recommend approval of the new revised deleted policies and guidelines as discussed in the March 16th, 2020 board meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and second, Dunaway and Dahl. Is there any discussion? Ready for a vote, Dave?
Dunaway?
Yes.
Dahl?
Yes.
Heatherly?
Yes.
Patry?
Yes.
Secor?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item T, recommend motion to hold a follow-up discussion on the topic of open enrollment.
I move in favor.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded by Patry and Heatherly. Is there any discussion?
There is. I won't spend too much time on this. We've already spoken about it a little bit. First, I want to just address some comments made. I did not violate any public policy, statute, or the policy of this board. Policy 148 does not prohibit me from making a public statement. I think it's very important that we understand here, and if you guys understand that, that's your privilege to vote no for open enrollment. But a no vote for open enrollment is going to cost our school district roughly $400,000 in lost revenue. It's not going to provide any measurable or meaningful reduction in our school district's expenses, and is not going to result in any noticeable or meaningful reduction in our classroom sizes. And so based on these three factors, I think it's important to all our taxpayers that we continue open enrollment. That's my feeling. I'm here for the taxpayers of Tipp City. I'm not here for any individual person. I'm here so that we don't lose $400,000 in revenue that's going to provide us no financial gain. So that's why I think it should be open for discussion and potentially for a vote.
I'll just follow up to say that often we make decisions that are in the best interest of the students. We currently have 33 students that are currently enrolled in Tipp City schools. We have now two students that are not certified staff students who will be impacted by this decision, and now 5 tuition applicants that we denied tonight. And I would just ask this rhetorical question because I don't want us to sit there and go back through this topic again. But I guess I would be wondering, what are we going to do as a district to prepare these now 40 students for what's next? Because they will not be returning to our district. They will not be saying goodbye to their peers and their teachers. I understand we are under some unusual circumstances, and I do recognize that we have big things to deal with in this district. So rhetorically, I would just ask, what are we going to do for the students that we claim that we care so much for? That's 40 of our current students. They won't be our students next year based on these votes.
Joellen, where are you getting the number 40?
Well, we have 33 students that are displaced that are not staff students. Is that not correct?
Did you say 30 or 33?
33.
I think it's 30, but go ahead, keep going.
Okay, we had 5 students that had applications tonight for tuition.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand we have 2 staff that are not certified staff that will be impacted by this decision.
So,
well, the numbers on the tuition, that some were open enroll as well, so you're doubling that. You can't count them twice.
So I think you'll be much closer to a number of either 32 or 33.
Right, because
yeah, I think it's 83 and then the 30, but there are 2 additional because of staff members as well. So
I think we're missing the point. We have students that we are saying that we care about our students, but we make decisions based on the best interest of our students. They are currently our students. Next year, they won't be our students. They won't be returning to the district. But that's all my comment. I find it discouraging that we as a board don't value our students. That these are currently our students, and we're not going to acknowledge that. And rather than deflect and we need to take responsibility for that.
So Joellen, I'm just curious, where does parental responsibility come into this?
You made that very clear, Anne. I don't want to. We don't need to go back and waste a bunch of time.
But you keep flipping it back that somehow the board has made the failure here. I'm very intrigued with this argument that somehow this has been a failure on the part of the board. When does someone step up and proactively, we have families that are not open enrolled any longer that have moved here for that very reason. They didn't want to take it to chance.
I understand that, Anne. I understand that.
But then why do you and Simon keep rehashing this, that somehow we have failed, we have done something wrong because this board voted on a change of policy? To be honest with you, the ones that, if you want to make that argument, that in my opinion, are the ones who came here and have maybe been here 1 year. But for some of these students that have been here since kindergarten and 7th and 10th, there was ample years to make that choice, to guarantee that spot. To me, that kind of seems like taking something you value very much for granted. I know if I had signed a form like that and I was really connecting into the community and I, did not want to put my child, I would, just like so many of the other open enrolled families did, rooted down and made that a non-negotiable thing anymore. I would have secured it. I would have made it dependable.
Well,
and not leave it to chance every year. And boards change every 2 years. Boards change.
Hey, you said that this board doesn't care about students.
Yeah, that really bothers
me. I find that comment very offensive.
I do too.
Because the amount of money that the Dunaway Family Foundation donated to the school last year was $22,000. So do you know how much money we have to make?
About 400.
So for you to say that I care about students is.
That's how much?
I'm sorry, Simon?
About $400,000. That's what we're going to lose. That's how much.
No.
Okay, I'm still making my comment to Joe Allen. So to say that I don't care about students that's egregious. And maybe a more accurate statement would be, each board member cares about different things. For the last 6 weeks, I've been focusing on distance learning. I've been sending, suggestions to Dr. Gumpf, Mr. Verhoff. I'm taking phone calls from parents, answering emails. If I didn't care about the students, I wouldn't be spending 6 hours a week fielding phone calls from parents on distance learning.
We're ending the school year under some unique circumstances, and the conversation that we started in February is different from where we are now as we're ending the school year. That's my point.
Well, here's the other problem with all this premising. I mean, you're reading tea leaves. You keep saying 400,000. It hasn't not even been firmly, you have not addressed in any logical, with proof sources, how you come up with that loss when it's the expenditure, total expenditure number E45 on the CUP report is $10,283 per student. And yet we're only bringing in $6,020 per open enroll student. There's a gap there.
Well, allow me to ask you this question. And what part of our budget would you cut to make up that $400,000?
Oh, I'd love to answer that.
Because when I asked our treasurer, he couldn't tell me where we would cut.
Okay.
And
when you're ready, I'll give you the answer.
And he indicated to me, and Mr. Stevens, correct me if I'm wrong, that we will not see any meaningful reduction in expenses with the loss of these students. And I think the example you use, maybe some with the water usage, et cetera. I know that was tongue in cheek, but the gist of it was there was nothing meaningful to be saved as far as our expenses because of the way the overhead is spread across each student. And that in next year's CUP report, what we would see is an increase in per student costs, not a reduction in expenses.
Okay, but Simon, once again, you artfully dodged. You artfully dodged my question. If it's $10,283 on the CUP report to educate, that is total expenditure per pupil fiscal year 19. If that's the cost, and we're bringing in let's take one student, it costs over $10,000 to educate that one student, but we're only being paid $6,020 for that student. You're not addressing that $4,000 deficit that our taxpayers are subsidizing?
The answer is simple. It's because when you are a student, you're not realizing a dollar per dollar saving without that student there, because you cannot reduce the expenses of the overall school district with 1.3% loss in students. It's not a dollar per dollar savings. Mr. Stevens, you're shaking your head yes. Does that sound right to you, sir?
It does.
Well, the expenditure per pupil data includes the administrative expenditure, which, by the way, look how much time Mr. Stevens spends on this analysis, recording these numbers, looking at classrooms and grade bands every year to see who can come in. Time is money in business. So administrative expenditures per pupil, instructional expenditure per pupil, you need Chromebooks, especially if we're going to do long distance. Pupil support expenditures, that's guidance counselors, that's nurses, that's guidance counselors, things like nurses.
So which ones are you cutting? Which nurse are you letting go?
Well, if you let me go on, but again, you have artfully dodged that $4,000 gap.
No, I have not dodged it.
This drum, but you don't answer how you make up that $4,000 gap per student that you bring in. And then I will answer your question.
I think I've answered that question. I think that the business people in this community.
So where's the $4,000 come from? The Tipp City taxpayer?
No,
and I will address this. Mr. Patton tried to say earlier that if we cut those students out without removing any of the expenditures that go along with those students, on the CUP report, you will see an increase on the current cost per student. And I think it's $300 and something. If you, so instead of taking a ADM of 2,550, you're now going to take an ADM of 2,520 to the same dollar amount of expenditures. The cost per student will go up. Unless we cut expenditures by removing a staff member or removing services that are extra because of those students, we will not see any reduction in expenses. And all we're going to do is increase the dollar per child on the CUP report for overall expenditures.
I'm not saying we're going to necessarily, I'm not talking about reducing expenses.
Right, but you're asking Mr. Simon, Mr. Patry to discuss the $4,000, and there's no, you can't have a $4,000 increase if you're not taking anything away. And
no, it's
so
not about an increase, Dave. It's very simple. If according to the ODE data, and it seems very comprehensive, they factor in a lot of different areas, and under expenditure per pupil data, it's on every district, number E45, it states for our district data, we spend, not roughly, $10,283.19 per pupil.
correct, and that is taken by taking the total dollar amount of expenditures for instructional and administrative and supply expenses.
Fine.
Divided by the number of students enrolled in the district.
By enrollment, not ADM.
Well, ADM, it's
average daily membership.
They
and
use
it was
the
my
ADM number.
What?
They use that ADM number, and my understanding is that CUP report includes the open enrolled students in the ADM number.
It does include open enrolled students, correct?
So we are losing $400,000 in revenue. Which expenses totaling $400,000?
No, there again, we haven't settled this. If it costs $10,000 per student, so we bring in someone, let's just say hypothetically from Troy, we have to, our outlay's $10,000. The state gives us $6,020 to offset that. Where does the other $4,000 come from?
You know, I don't know how productive this really is. I think the position has been made, the vote has been taken.
Yes.
If you would ask a teacher, a wise teacher told me one time that a student is a student, not a dollar sign. And if you're the parent to one of these students that's going to be impacted, they don't want to see their student diminished to a dollar sign either. My statements were not to offend anyone as to you not caring. I'm saying we as a board, as a cautionary tale, are making decisions that is systematically alienating groups by our votes. When we're going to turn around and ask this same community to support us when we need a new building.
Well, you know what, Joellen, there's a lot of people in this community that are very supportive of ending open enrollment. And let me give you a real life scenario that you all received. So you know, I'll leave the name out, but here's what's happening. You bring a student in from Troy or another district. That student gets on Teams. And that student, by that student's own admission, said, if I was attending my home school, I wouldn't be selected for that team because there's more talent, more competition. So that student then comes to a smaller school like Tipp City and says, well, maybe less talent, less competition, I'll be on the team at that school. So how does that play out fairly for the students that live here in Tipp City? By sometimes multiple generations, they live here, they pay taxes, they reside here, and they get bumped from their own little school system by someone coming in who's maybe more talented, more involved. You think that's caring for kids, Joellen? I don't see it that way. I'm putting, and I'm not ashamed to say that I'm going to put Tipp City residents and Tipp City taxpayers first.
See, that's the problem with looking at things in a vacuum, because that one student may take a position of one student on a team, but the rest of the members on that team are going to be glad that they got the better team and do better overall. And so I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but it is, you're going to have all students who live in Tipp City be happy for that. We can all talk about anecdotal discussions that we've had with other people and what's happening in the community. The bottom line is the numbers are what they are. You're going to cut $400,000 in revenue. You cannot cut $400,000 in expenses. The $4,000 difference you want to focus on the CUP report is looking at one tree in a forest. You're not seeing what's happening overall. You cannot look things as a vacuum, just like.
Oh, really?
Student.
Well, here's where
bottom line is our
okay.
treasurer. I have the floor. The bottom line is our treasurer has indicated that we will lose $400,000 in revenue, that there is not going to be any $400,000 worth of expenditures that can be made, that our cost per student will go up. And so if we vote no on open enrollment, that's the reality that
we already did vote no on open enrollment.
Face.
We already voted no on open enrollment.
Just a second, Ann and Simon. When we had 83 open enroll students, we ran at a deficit of 4,000 for each one of those 83 open enroll students. So that multiplies out to $332,000 when we open enrolled 83 students. That doesn't include the fact that 15 of those students we didn't get any money for. So we lose 100% because they're not in adjacent districts.
Respectfully.
But Simon, please let me finish respectfully. So we lost $332,000 with open enrollment when we had 83 students, probably more because I'm not including the 15 that were not adjacent. Now we are running the same exact deficit with no open enrollment. Simon, hold on just a second. It is currently, Simon, the fact that we don't have to make up that 400,000 deficit because we're already at it. There is not going to be a loss. There is not going to be a program loss for our current students and our current taxpayers because we already were running at a loss for all of those years. Now, I know that emotions are high. I know everybody's got an anecdotal story. I know that everybody's got things going on. I think right now we are at an impasse. We're not listening to each other. Continuing this conversation is going to inhibit us from working together as a board moving forward for Tipp City Schools. So respectfully, I'm going to ask that our board president end this conversation and move us to a vote.
I think that's a great way to end it. Dave, Steve, call for a vote.
A vote on what?
There was no motion.
We already had the discussion, so.
Yeah, we should have never had the discussion. It was a motion to hold a follow-up discussion on the topic of enrollment, but we've had the discussion, which we should not have had. So at this point, it's actually a moot point because we really shouldn't have had any of the discussion that just went on for the last 8 minutes. And it's unfortunate. So call for a vote. Sorry, I didn't mean to sound bossy about that.
And I'm not sure what we're voting on. I'm very sorry.
And the original motion was a motion to hold a follow-up discussion on the topic of enrollment. So there should have been no discussion. It should have just been a vote because we were voting to have a discussion, to have another discussion.
Fair enough. I didn't put it on the agenda, but I can fix this by saying I move to amend the motion, not for discussion, but for a vote on open enrollment.
Simon, we've already open enrollment twice.
I'm moving to amend it to have a vote for open enrollment. You guys can vote it down now that you've heard what I had to say. That's fine. If there's
you can't amend it. You weren't in the prevailing party.
Simon, you weren't a member of the prevailing party. Only myself and
show me where that is in the Robert's Rules of Order.
Oh my gosh,
It's not. It doesn't exist.
It is. It actually is because I've looked it up like a zillion times.
Okay, so here we go. You know, you talk about the kids, Simon. Why are you doing this? Don't be a spoilsport. It was voted on legitimately. We've had lots of discussions. It's time to move on and work for the masses here, not just come on.
Yeah, there's 2,565 students in our district.
Yeah, what about all those kids? Don't they matter?
We have spent 2 months focusing on 30 open enrolled students. We have ended open enrollment.
It's done.
That's a mischaracterization of what I'm trying to do here and bring to the light. But
it also negates the relationships that our 2,600 students have with those 30, 80, 40, 33.
Teresa, I thought you called for a vote.
And I was just getting ready to say that. I called for a vote. So right now on the floor is a motion to hold a follow-up discussion on the topic of open enrollment, which is obviously a moot point because we've been discussing this for like 12 minutes now, which should have really never have happened. So Dave, will you call for a roll?
Patrick,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Dahl,
No.
Dunaway,
No?
Moore,
No.
There you go. Motion fails.
That was our
Miscellaneous?
last item.
Yeah, go ahead. Miscellaneous upcoming meetings.
that's you, Teresa.
Madam President.
Sorry
you
about
can
that.
take that.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, the next work session will be Monday, May 4th, 2020, beginning at 6 p.m. via remote connectivity on YouTube. The next regular Board of Education meeting will take place on Monday, May 18th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Also with the remote connectivity on YouTube. Of course, that could be subject to change depending on what Mr. DeWine announces on Friday. Okay, so right now we are going to adjourn to executive session. Sorry. Right now we are going to adjourn to executive session for purposes authorized under Board of Education Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22G1 to consider a complaint against a public official. And the board is not going to invite anybody into that meeting. It's going to be strictly board members.
You first.
I'll move.
I'll second. Moved and seconded by Dowell and Dunaway. And Corinne, did you set up a link for this?
I did. It's in
So
the.
Corinne has a link. And for the board members, do we want to, what time do we want to reconvene if everybody wants to, is
It's in and out, right?
9:30 okay for everybody?
Are you giving us a break?
I'm ready to go right now if everybody is.
Sorry, Simon?
I said, I'm ready to go right now if everybody is.
I can go.
Okay, all righty.
All right.
So the meeting is adjourned.
Oh, no. We got to vote on going into executive session.
Oh, sorry. Dowell and Dunaway, go ahead. Call for the roll.
Dahl,
Yes.
Dunaway,
Yes.
Heatherly,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
McCore,
Yes.
and you anticipate no action afterwards,
Yeah,
correct?
we anticipate no action, and we are going to move into executive session right now. And I will test when we're getting ready to come out and go back onto the original link.
Sounds good. I'll be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, see you in a few minutes.
Alrighty.
Okay, bye. Dave, who are we waiting on? Let me see. I think we're all here.
Ann's coming in.
Okay. Somebody, I know last time we did this, my computer died, so I had it charging this time.
Okay. Now I had down that we went into executive session at 9:17. Was that correct?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Yeah, it was 9:17.
Okay.
I had it down, 9:17.
Awesome.
Are we still waiting?
again.
Okay, let me click. Let me know when Ann jumps on.
I got to unmute her.
She's there.
I think, Dave, you've also got my camera off. It says that the host has to take my camera back on. Not that you have to see me.
You've all been invited to share your cameras.
All right.
We ready, Dave?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Do you have to reconvene in?
Yes.
Oh, shoot.
Wait a minute. Yeah, so we're back from regular session. Okay. So Teresa, just state that you we're back into regular session at 9:41.
Okay, the board is back in regular session. It is 9:41, and we are now going to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Need a first?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Who firsted it?
I thought you did.
I thought you
Oh,
did.
sure. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Dunaway and Dahl.
All right. Dunaway,
Yes.
Dahl,
Yes.
Heatherly. Heatherly?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just her microphone doesn't
Yes.
pick up.
Here's sign
Patrick?
language. Yes.
Yes.
McCord.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
All
Good
right,
night,
everybody.
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 See you
Good
next month.
night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.